Chapter 302. The snow will continue for another day or two. Feng Jin shook his head. It's always like this in Shangjing. It snows earlier and earlier every year. Jiang Pingji looked at the snow-covered roofs in the distance. She frowned as if she was worried about something. On the day of the Qianglin banquet, the snow did not stop. The entire Shangjing city was covered in a layer of white. However, the cold outside could not stop the liveliness of the Qianglin banquet. They toasted each other, sang and danced. The graceful dancers wore watercolored gauze and danced gracefully in the snow. They were like fairies from the ninth heaven who could ascend to immortality at any time. Jiang Pingji saw their bare feet. Their feet were red and blue from the ice. She suddenly lost the mood. She felt uncomfortable watching it, but the other scholars were watching with great interest. This Master Yuanjing is so powerful. His students have taken 2 of the top 3 places. I heard that if Master Yuanjing's disciple Lu Jing was not born in a poor family, he would be in the top 3. If that's the case, it's scary. I heard that Master Yuanjing has another disciple. Where's he? Are you talking about Wei Zixiao? I heard that someone spoke rudely to him during the assessment. His temper flared up and he left after hitting the person. That's a pity. What's there to pity? He hit someone. He's so rude. He doesn't look like a scholar. He's just a boorish man. Jiang Pingji sat in her seat. She was surrounded by scholars of similar status. All of them were gossiping. Some relied on their family's wealth to buy a position, while others relied on their parents to join in the fun. Jiang Pingji belonged to the latter group. She drank some sake in silence and left the Qianglin banquet with the excuse that she could not hold her liquor. Suke drove the carriage and stopped outside. He saw Jiang Pingji walking over, wrapped in a thick white cloak. From afar she looked like a moving white ball. He suppressed his laughter and hurriedly got off the carriage to put down the stool. He was not a coachman. He just wanted to see where the Qianglin banquet was held. The commoners had the chance to enter. Suke would never be able to enter if he did not have other opportunities. Jiang Pingji knew what Suke was thinking, so she did not stop him. The weather gets cold really fast. You should wear more clothes when you go out. I told you to wait in the carriage, yet you insist on sitting outside. Isn't this suffering? Here, this is for you to warm your hands, lest you say that I mistreat you behind my back. Suke took the delicate hand warmer. It was small and exquisite and was wrapped in a thick layer of cloth. It did not burn his hand and felt like it was meant for a little girl. Langjun, you have wronged me. When did I complain about you behind your back? Even if there is, it would be a direct complaint. Suke did not want to provoke Jiang Pingji's eyes. No matter what he had in mind, he couldn't hide it. Rather than hiding it and being laughed at, he might as well come out openly. What a glib tongue. Jiang Pingji said with a smile. Just as she was about to step onto the carriage, she caught a glimpse of Wei Ci, who was dressed in a green Confucian robe, standing in the wind and snow with an umbrella in his hand. She stopped in her tracks and turned to Suke. Take the hand warmer and hide in the carriage. I have something to do. After Suke heard this, he was surprised. He could not help but shift his gaze towards Wei Ci. As someone who was obsessed with invisible voices, it was hard for him not to remember anyone with a special voice. Not to mention, other than his moving voice, Wei Ci could also be considered a person with a clear demeanor and handsome bones. Jiang Pingji walked forward and teased, Zixiao, are you waiting for me here? Wei Ci did not overreact like before. Instead he said calmly, I'm just waiting here like your accountant. As for who I'm waiting for, it depends on who I'm waiting for. If you think I'm waiting for you, it's okay to think so. Was he mocking her for being narcissistic? Jiang Pingji's expression darkened. She looked at Wei Ci with an inquisitive gaze. Wei Ci did not avoid her gaze. He looked down and slightly lowered his head to look into her eyes. His eyes were open, not empty like before. As he spoke, he tilted the umbrella in his hand slightly and covered the top of Jiang Pingji's head. The wind and snow are strong. You should go back quickly. Did you write the article yourself? Jiang Pingji asked Wei Ci with a serious face. She was not being polite. Wei Ci smiled calmly and asked her in reply, Do you think your father leaked the article so that I can find someone to write it for me? Jiang Pingji was silent. It was not because she suspected that Wei Ci would find someone to write for him, but she felt that Wei Ci's thinking was too different from the literati of the time. If everyone in the world went to study, who would do the farming? If there were more people studying, there would be more people sharing the cake. How would the aristocrats who monopolized the inheritance of knowledge be willing to do that? Wei Xi was also born in an aristocratic family. Even if the Wei family of Langia had withered, their ancestors were once prominent. The aristocrats had a sense of pride in their bones. They boasted that their bloodline was superior to others and that they were born to be superior to others. Either Wei Xi really had such a broad vision, or he was just a naive youth who didn't know much about the world. No matter how Jiang Pingji looked at him, Wei Xi did not seem to be the latter. "You have a glib tongue," she said with a fake smile. "It seems that you already know how to maintain your composure in front of me." Wei Xi's voice sounded a little relieved. "Once bitten, twice shy. Although I dare not be on par with Yumo and the others, I am not a fool without talent. Naturally, I will not fall in the same place twice. If you still want to test me, I am afraid you will be disappointed." Jiang Pingji turned her head to look at him and said with a drawn-out, "Oh. You should be glad that there are many people in carriages here." Wei Xi raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "Zixiao is talented and his clothes match the vast snowy scenery." "If there is no one around..." Jiang Pingji did not finish her sentence. Instead, she raised her eyebrows at him and gave him a very ambiguous and flirtatious hint. Wei Xi suddenly tightened his grip on the umbrella handle and straightened his expression. "Go eat the snow." Jiang Pingji laughed so hard that even her shoulders were shaking. Wei Xi's reaction was really interesting. He was like an arrogant cat. Unintentionally, Jiang Pingji looked at the vast snowy landscape and suddenly said this. "After the Qianglin banquet, my father is going to resign." Wei Xi's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. "Your father has just become an official. Why is he going to resign?" "Take a guess." Wei Xi looked at the short man who was not even as tall as his chest and said in a low voice, "If you don't intervene, your father may be able to retire and have some peace. Now that the situation in Dongqing is getting more and more serious, the day Nanqing is destroyed will be the day the world will be in chaos. Retiring is a good way to avoid the chaos. But if Langjun intervenes, I'm afraid that this memorial will be a move to advance by retreating." "Retreat to advance? That's a good word. Then take a guess, which step am I advancing to?" Wei Xi closed his eyes. If everything had not changed, the person in front of him would not be so ambitious. At most, she would lead a bunch of bandits to stir up trouble in Dongqing. But now Wei Xi could feel that she wanted to be the emperor many years earlier than she was in the past. If that was the case. He closed his eyes and thought for a while, then he said two words with certainty. "Tongzhou." Fortune was found in danger. Whether it was her in the past or now, Wei Xi did not expect her to be steady and sure. "You really know me well." Chapter 303. He calmed himself down and asked calmly, "From what I can see, don't you know me very well?" Jiang Pingji smiled and did not continue to interrogate Wei Xi. Boiling a frog in warm water had to be done slowly. What if a pot of boiling water was poured down and scared people away? She looked like she was looking at the sky, but she was actually paying attention to the paper umbrella in Wei Xi's hand. Even though he threw a tantrum and moved the umbrella away, he quietly moved it back and let the snow pile up on his shoulders. Jiang Pingji raised her hand and took off the cloak, indicating for Wei Xi to put it on. "I'll have to trouble you to take care of me when I study in Langyi." Wei Xi glanced at the thick white fur cloak and said calmly, "You and I can be considered to be acquaintances. Master also admires your talent. I think you won't face any difficulties in the academy. Why do you need to bribe me? I'm not afraid of the cold or heat, so it doesn't matter how much I wear. But Zixiao is weak and we're still standing in the snow waiting for someone. It's better to be careful." Jiang Pingji threw the cloak into his arms. He could wear it if he wanted. After that, Jiang Pingji turned and walked to her carriage. She stepped on the bench and said, "To the Feng residence." Just as she raised her hand to lift the curtain, Su Ku, who had been watching them, handed the hand stove back to her. The driver of the carriage, who was wearing a bamboo hat, pulled the reins and drove away. He happened to pass by Wei Xi. He gave the cloak to Wei Langjun. "Taksha will talk about you when you go back." Su Ku knelt near the door of the carriage and put his hands into warm gloves. The thick layer of rabbit fur was very comfortable. Jiang Pingji held the hand stove and added charcoal in it. The temperature was higher than before. Your Langjun is strong and healthy. He can kill 2 cows with his bare hands. Will he get sick without a cloak? Jiang Pingji raised her eyebrows. He's just a weak scholar. He doesn't wear much, but he's standing outside like a log. Isn't he afraid of catching a cold? Suku was suddenly speechless. Indeed, his Langjun looked young and weak, but in fact his fighting ability was off the charts. His appearance was too deceiving. I heard from Huayu that Zixiao's family has moved to Zhongzhou and returned to the clan. He stayed in Laiyi alone. Who knows how many maids and old women took care of him. The weather changes so fast. I guess he didn't prepare many clothes to keep warm. Jiang Pingji was a meticulous person, but she rarely took the initiative to care about others. In other words, in her opinion, there was no need to care at all. Everyone had 2 hands and 2 feet. If they couldn't even take care of themselves, wouldn't they be? That wouldn't work in the ancient times. After Suku heard this, he couldn't help but sigh. His Langjun seemed to have become more humane. The Jasper Forest banquet seemed to be a celebratory banquet held for a few scholars who had stood out from the crowd, but in reality, it was merely a place for people to sing praises and flatter. Many of the courtiers exerted all their skills, fawning and servile appearances, which made people secretly feel angry. The Qianglin banquet seemed to be a celebration for a few outstanding scholars, but in fact, it was just a place for people to sing praises and flatter. Many officials tried their best to flatter, which made people angry. Hanyu was a hot-tempered person. He didn't have the slightest intention of restraining himself in front of his close friends. Looking at it now, it seems that it was the right decision to beat them up and leave that day as a filial piety. You are so servile and have no backbone at all. It's just, Qing Jing stared at Hanyu and stopped him from continuing. Be careful with your words. Have you forgotten? Be careful with your words and actions. Have you forgotten these 4 words? Qing Jing said in a low voice. If you get yourself killed because of this. Compared to Hanyu and Qing Jing's nervousness, Lu Jing secretly stuck out his belly and resisted the urge to eat. There was a lot of delicious food at the Qianglin banquet. Lu Jing was born in a poor family. He was the son of a hunter and liked to roll in the mud since he was a child. If Master Yuanjing hadn't said that he was destined to meet him and brought him back to the academy to teach him, he wouldn't be qualified to stand at the Qianglin banquet. It was a rare opportunity. It would be a waste if he didn't eat. He was not Hanyu or Qing Jing. He didn't eat much, but he was angry. The walls have ears. You should pay attention. Wenbin, this is not a good place to complain. Lu Jing paced slowly with his belly full. He looked very relaxed, but he was so full that he couldn't walk. Hanyu took a deep breath and tried his best to suppress his anger. From afar, the few of them saw Wei Xiai hugging a white velvet cloak in his arms. He stood rooted to the ground in a daze, not knowing what he was thinking. Lu Jing was thick-skinned enough. He stepped forward with a smile and pretended to reach out to take the cloak from Wei Xi's arms. He even said, Zixiao is indeed the most considerate. He knows that I'm not wearing much today, so he specially brought the cloak here. I thank him in advance. Before his hand touched the cloak, Wei Xiai took a step back and said bluntly, It's not for you. Lu Jing wasn't angry. Instead, he sneakily looked at the tie on the collar of the cloak. The end of the tie was decorated with 2 delicate fur balls, which didn't match Wei Xi's style. Not only that, but the size of the cloak was also inappropriate. Then who is it for? Lu Jing asked. Wei Xiai ignored him. He glanced at Hanyu and Qing Jing's expression and sighed. You don't look happy. Were you bullied at the banquet? Hanyu didn't pay attention to the cloak. His attention was drawn back to the Qianglin banquet. The anger that he had suppressed just now came out again. The so-called important officials in the court are all servile and flattering. They don't have any dignity. The court will be finished sooner or later if this continues. Wei Xiai glanced around and felt relieved when he didn't see anyone. They are just servile to the bone. Why are you angry with them? Wei Xiai smiled carelessly. I heard that before the Qianglin banquet, the head of the secretariat, Feng Ren, resigned and returned to his hometown. Not only did the government not ask him to stay, but they promoted a confidant. Isn't that clear enough for you to see? You want a docile and obedient domestic cat, not a wild cat that is hard to tame and arrogant. Hanyu almost exploded. Who are you calling a wild cat? Wei Xiai continued, It's just the Qianglin banquet. You can't control your temper. What will you do in the future? What do you mean? Han Yu asked. Nowadays the eunuchs secretly sell their titles. The price of each official position is clearly marked and they give it to anyone who has money. Do you think that it's only the eunuchs who are greedy? The greedy ones are the big ones. Wei Xi and the others got into the carriage. The charcoal in the carriage dispelled the cold air. He pointed to the sky. Wenbin is ranked third in the assessment. When the time comes he will only get a small official position. It's not even as high as the official positions that those scoundrels buy with money. You will be so angry that one Buddha is born and 2 Buddhas will go to heaven. Han Yu almost choked on his words. Wei Zixiao, you're too mean. Wei Xi was not afraid and continued, I have something more mean. Do you want to hear it? Lu Jing secretly held back his laughter. Qing Jing shook his head helplessly and fiddled with the silver wire charcoal in the charcoal basin. Chapter 304. Han Yu was a stubborn person. He would jump up and down when Wei Xi provoked him a little. However, Wei Xi didn't continue to bully Han Yu this time. Instead he sighed. The official's family indulges the eunuchs. They even pretend that they don't see it when they sell titles and positions. As for the relatives of the emperor, when one of them achieves the Dao, all of them follow suit. It's obvious that the official wants to support 2 parties and make things difficult for the aristocratic families. There are 2 reasons for Feng Ren's resignation. Firstly, he wanted to defend his second son Feng Jin against injustice. Secondly, he could tell that Dongqing was seriously ill and could not be saved. Qing Jing continued, Wenbin's temperament can still be tempered. He is so angry now. What can he do in the future? Feng Ren's resignation had already become a signal. If the other aristocratic families had foresight, they would have left one after another or stood by indifferently. The vacated positions naturally became the cake that the eunuchs and the relatives of the emperor fought for. No matter which side won, the people they placed in the positions were mostly people with bad intentions who only cared about their own interests. If the imperial court could still be saved, it would be a blessing in disguise. The corner of Han Yu's mouth twitched. The 2 people in front of him echoed each other, which made him look immature. Shaoyin, don't you have anything to say? Han Yu asked Lu Jing for help. Lu Jing snorted, I have no ambition in my life. I just have enough to eat, wear warm clothes and have a house to live in. As long as I am an official, I am still an official. I just need to live my own life and take care of the people under my rule. As for the rest, I don't have the ability. Let the capable ones take care of it. Han Yu was so angry that he almost fell down. What kind of help is this? It's a stupid teammate. Qing Jing said, Wenbin, don't be stubborn. Do what you should do. It's not a good time to be an official in the current situation. Han Yu felt wronged. Are the 3 of you here to comfort me or to piss me off? Wei Xi winked mischievously and said to him, I didn't say that I'm here to comfort you. Han Yu was speechless. That was the end of their friendship. According to the previous practice, the scholars who stood out in the assessment would receive the appointment letter from the imperial court within half a month and be dispatched to various places. Regarding the arrangement of scholars, they would generally consider their abilities and family backgrounds. Although their official positions were not high, they were very challenging and it was easy for them to accumulate experience. In more remote places, the official rank was slightly higher, while in more prosperous places, it was slightly lower. If there were family members making arrangements everywhere, their official positions and locations could also be changed at their discretion. It was very practical. However, now that the court was in chaos, many officials had tacitly forgotten about this matter, and the emperor did not even mention it. Yuan Jing and his entourage stayed in Shangjing for half a month. Many students were worried that something might happen. Wei Xi and the rest were able to settle down. Every day they would either quietly study and practice calligraphy, or play a few rounds with their classmates and recite poems to pass the time. Lu Jing was sitting at the side of the chessboard watching Wei Xi beat Han Yu up. He was suddenly enlightened and suddenly said, It's already been half a month. If I don't go back soon, I'm afraid I'll have to spend the new year in Shangjing. Han Yu looked at the situation on the chessboard and felt his head hurt. It's not good to leave before the appointment letter from the imperial court. Wei Xi placed his chess piece with a smile, forcing Han Yu into a dead end. Perhaps this letter of appointment won't be sent down. Why do you say so? Han Yu asked. Wei Xi said sarcastically, Perhaps all the vacant official positions have been sold out. Of course, it was impossible for all the official positions to be sold out. However, the imperial court was busy preparing for the marriage between the princess of the northern borderline, and Yaina, and the second prince. Dongqing still wanted to wrangle with the northern borderline. All of them wanted to gain benefits for themselves. Why would they care about these scholars? These days, apart from Feng Ren's retirement, it was the retirement of the county chief of Hu County, Lu Shi. For the former, the emperor was happy to take back the position of the head of the secretariat and promote his confidant. For the latter, the emperor wanted to do the same. However, Lu Shi presented a memorial at the imperial court meeting. Immediately, someone jumped out and said how hard Lu Shi had worked all these years. Under his rule, Hu County had turned from a desolate and uninhabited county to a major grain-producing county. He had alleviated the food shortage of the two neighboring states. He was a meritorious minister. He was still so young. If he retired, it would be the biggest loss for Dongqing. The speech was so impassioned that the emperor was too embarrassed to accept Lu Shi's retirement. If that's the case, do any of you have any good suggestions? Although the emperor was shameless, he did not want to embarrass himself at the imperial court meeting. He still had to cover his embarrassment. Lu Shi took the opportunity to repeat his intention to retire. Another official jumped out and said no. If the emperor agreed, wouldn't the world mistakenly think that the emperor coveted the riches of Hu County and wanted to burn the bridge after crossing it to take the opportunity to seize the fruits of victory from others? Lu Shi was a brick. He would move wherever there was a shortage. After an intense discussion, someone suddenly mentioned that Chongzhou still lacked a prefecture magistrate. A prefecture magistrate was more important than a county chief. The former managed the land of a state while the latter managed a small county. Everyone had completely forgotten that Chongzhou only had Xianyu County and Changhe County. Xianyu County had a total of 6 cities. 3 of them were still in the hands of the northern borderline. Its overall area was the smallest among the 6 states of Dongqing. Its north was also connected to the northern borderline. Who knew how long it would take to lose one's head? Although Hu County was only a county, its area was comparable to a state. Moreover, it was now incomparably rich under Lu Shi's governance. The Dongqing emperor weighed the pros and cons in his heart and decisively made a decision. He pretended to express how much he valued Lu Shi. He also said that the world was in turmoil. If Lu Shi were to retire now, it would be a loss for Dongqing and a regret for the people. Without a second word, he threw the position of Chongzhou magistrate onto Lu Shi's head. Lu Shi appeared tired and unresigned as he agreed, but in his heart he sighed. He had a godlike teammate by his side. His opponents were all pigs. The difficulty was too low. There was no challenge at all. Lu Shi bore the steaming, freshly baked magistrate of Chongzhou and went to court with a cold expression. He ignored everyone. He doesn't know what's good for him. He was promoted from a county chief to a prefecture magistrate, and now he's putting on a straight face. Tisk, who doesn't know that Hu County is now in high demand? 1 county can feed 2 states. How much food is that? From what I see, Lu Shi has no intention of retiring. He's just putting on an act, hoping to stay in Hu County. Who knew that the emperor would transfer him to Chongzhou? Chongzhou, what kind of place is that? 3 wolves are watching from the north. He can't sleep well at night. Oh? Isn't that a big loss? Cleverness can be mistaken for cleverness. Who asked him to be so stupid? I wonder who will take over as the county chief of Hu County. In any case, it can't be the 2 of us. Let's just watch the show. Everyone wants a piece of Hu County. The small discussions around him drifted into Lu Shi's ears. His face was still livid. After he boarded the carriage, he suddenly smiled faintly. Cleverness can be mistaken for cleverness. Soon everyone would know who the real stupid person was. The carriage stopped. Lu Shi got down from the sedan chair. His confidant came forward to speak to him. Master, the person Lang Jun is looking for has been found. Lu Shi was stunned. His expression quickly changed. Found. Yes, they look 70% similar. His confidant gestured a 7. Lu Shi's chest was beating rapidly as if it was about to jump out of his throat. Chapter 305. Lu Shi's eyes darkened and he ordered, "Bring her to Lanting. She will handle it." Hearing that Lu Shi was going to hand the girl over to Lu Shi, the confidant's face suddenly became bitter. He stuttered and hesitated. Lu Shi saw the situation and said, "Just say what you want to say. You don't have to hide half of it." "I didn't mean to hide it. It's just that I heard from the master that you want to hand the girl over to Lang Jun. I don't think it's appropriate." The confidant hesitantly moved closer to Lu Shi and finally said what was on his mind. "That girl's identity is not clean. If Lang Jun's temperament changes, I won't be able to absolve myself of the blame." Lu Shi immediately understood the meaning of the confidant's words. His expression suddenly became very interesting. He hesitated for a while and said, "Follow me." The confidant followed Lu Shi's footsteps and carefully kept a step away from him. He lowered his head and hands, not daring to look around. "Tell me in detail. What's wrong with the girl's identity?" Although Lu Shi had guessed it, he still had to confirm it. The confidant knelt down. There was no one around, so there was no need to worry about eavesdropping. "The girl I found is 14 years old. Her mother is a lowly prostitute. Her father is unknown." The confidant was very helpless. They had secretly searched for the girl based on the portrait Lu Shi had given them. The girl was the most similar in appearance and temperament. Although the other candidates were clean, they were not as similar. After thinking about it, the confidant recommended the girl. "Lowly prostitute?" Lu Shi furrowed his brows. He was very unhappy with the identity. "Has she received guests before?" He wasn't sure what his daughter wanted to do, but he knew that the girl he found was probably a honey trap. The confidant's expression twisted and he said carefully, "Master, you also know that prostitutes usually live in shameful slums. Most of the customers who come and go are peddlers and hooligans. Women who grow up in such places are unlucky. At the age of 5 or 6, they are, not to mention that person is already 14. Lu Shi's face darkened when he heard the confidant. "Bring the girl to Lanting and let her make a decision. Continue to investigate secretly and see if there are more similar and suitable candidates." The confidant took the order and bowed and left. Lu Shi sat where he was, immersed in the shadows of the room. After a long time he seemed to have understood something. He held his forehead with one hand, and his expression seemed to be smiling yet not smiling, crying yet not crying. It faintly carried a trace of pleasure of being about to take revenge, which washed away his usual gentleness, and his whole body was surrounded by a cold and poisonous aura. "So what if she's the daughter of a prostitute?" He seemed to be listless as he murmured in a low voice. His voice was suppressing the viciousness that made one shudder. It made one's hair stand on end. "In the future, if I wear that face and use that body to turn Dongqing upside down, then that's what I call delightful." Kao was born in the slums of the poor. On the day of her birth, it was snowing heavily. Many of the adults froze to death, but she survived. Her mother was a prostitute, and now she was also a prostitute and a prostitute under her mother. What was a prostitute? The lowest of prostitutes could be casually used for 3 to 5 copper coins. Even though she was scared to death in order to survive, she had no choice but to feign civility and serve them well. Otherwise, not only would the customers not let her go, but the brothel keeper above her, her mother, would also not let her go. She was always dressed in ragged linen clothes that had been washed and patched. Every day she had to clean the house, wash the clothes, wash the dishes and cook. She had to serve the madam and the other prostitutes until they were comfortable. Then she would lie on the tattered mat and wait for one customer after another. When she was a child, she was carelessly taken advantage of by a few ruffians and lost her virginity. Her mother beat her like crazy, and then forced her to accept customers and inherit her mother's business. She lived in a muddle. Over the years she did not know how many children were beaten. She had only lived for 14 years, but she felt that she had lived more than half of her life. Even though she was born beautiful, she now had a lot of white hair. Her face was haggard and her eyes were sunken. She thought that this was the end of her life, but she did not expect to be taken away from the slums by a man dressed in a very powerful outfit 2 days ago. She knelt on the ground, trembling, and her skinny body trembled like a sieve. Her whole body wished she could lie on the ground, and she did not dare to look around. After waiting for a long time, the sound of a paper door opening came from behind her, and unfamiliar footsteps walked past her. After a rustling sound, the person sat directly on the seat of honor. "What's your name?" Judging from the voice, the person should not be old, maybe even younger than Akeo. She had heard many hoarse voices and all kinds of malicious yelling, but she had never heard such a clear and peaceful voice. Her body trembled uncontrollably, and Akeo felt that her mouth was not hers anymore. She even forgot the instinct to open her mouth to speak. Seeing her behavior, Jiang Pingji was not in a hurry to say anything. Instead, she asked Taxi to serve tea and drink it to calm her nerves. The audience in the streaming room had long been looking forward to it. They did not know what the streamer was up to, who was so important that she would leave behind the remaining chessboard and the young man Feng Jin, and come over so quickly. Looking at it now, it did not seem to be much. Lao Ciji Lianmeng. I feel that the streamer would not do unnecessary things. She attaches so much importance to this person. Her identity must be very powerful. To Ciji Jiwu, #LaughTihi. Maybe she is the streamer's younger sister who is stranded outside. Inueja Zhugachinmal. There are no clues. I can't guess the streamer's intentions. I'd better get a small stool and watch slowly. After waiting for a while, Jiang Pingji felt that the other party's emotions had stabilized, so she asked again. What's your name? Akeo's ears were flushed, and she felt a sense of inferiority that she could not wait to crawl into the ground. My name is Akeo. Although Akeo did not sound nice, it was a proper name. Akeo. Jiang Pingji heard it and asked again, do you know who asked you to come here? Akeo's thin and weak body trembled and she said in a low voice like a cat, I don't know. I vaguely remember that it was a master. For Akeo, people who were neat and tidy were considered wealthy. She had never seen the clothes worn by Lu Shi's confidant. Such a dignified person could be considered a master. Jiang Pingji asked again, then do you know why you are here? Akeo bit her lower lip, and there was a little embarrassment on her thin and weak face. Only then did she slowly sit up straight with her head hanging down. She put her hands on her waist and pretended to pull off the belt around her waist. If it was on a normal day, Akeo would at most be wrapped in a tattered dress, and she would wear nothing underneath. Because she was poor, she could not afford to wear it. Besides, it was useless for a prostitute to wear clothes. In the end, she would have to strip naked to serve others. Lu Shi's confidant brought her back and asked the maid to prepare a complete set of clothes for her. She washed it from head to toe with soap several times. Chapter 306. Therefore, she untied the belt around her waist and only unbuttoned the outer layer of clothes. She was still wrapped in 2 or 3 layers of clothes. Jiang Pingji saw that and stood in front of Akeo. Akeo clenched her fists nervously and embarrassedly. She thought that a strange body would press down on her, but she saw a pair of clean white hands in her sight. They were really clean. Even the round fingernails had a transparent luster. The clothes that were taken off were neatly put back on by those hands. The belt was tied in a beautiful knot at the waist. I didn't ask you to come here to do this. Naturally, the excited veterans in the streaming room who were waiting for the girl to take off her clothes and offer herself for sex could stop for a while. Akeo no longer lowered her head. She thought that she was hiding something and quietly raised her head. She wanted to see Jiang Pingji's face. She was stunned when she saw her face. She was younger than she had imagined. Such a young noble family's young master would also seek pleasure in the slums? He was confused. Then, what should I do? Akeo asked in a daze. Enjoy life. Jiang Pingji looked at Akeo's face carefully. According to Lu Shi's confidant, this girl was 70% similar to that girl. If she was taken good care of, she would probably look even more similar when she grew up in the future. It was as if she had been reborn. As the saying went, beauty was in the bones, not in the skin. Even if the girl was very thin and her face was tired, she was still beautiful. Enjoy life. Yes, live like a concubine. A concubine? Akeo widened her eyes in shock. That was the emperor's daughter, the high and mighty princess, right? A very beautiful face. It will let you live the best life for the rest of your life. Jiang Pingji did not hide her praise. Even if Akeo had gray hair, a thin body and a haggard face, she still had a kind of beauty. Akeo also came to her senses at this moment. Her expression changed and she was a little thoughtful. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. How could such a good thing happen to her? If she had such a good life, how could she have been bullied by a few hooligans when she was 7 or 8 years old? She had to crawl home half dead. She had been so wronged, and she was even beaten by her mother with a matchstick. Her mother scolded her for being indecent and saying that she was born to be a slut. He had suffered so much in the past, so why did good things befall him now? I will let you live more comfortably than Empress concubine. Jiang Pingji sat in front of Akeo. She did not deliberately explain anything. She just waited for her reaction. Then, what should this lowly servant do to live better than Empress concubine? Akeo secretly tightened her sleeves. She could not help but feel nervous and afraid when facing Jiang Pingji. Jiang Pingji smiled. The girl in front of her was of low birth, but she was very smart. She could be molded. Be loyal to me. Even if you have to cross a mountain of daggers or a sea of flames, you have to step over it for me. If you work for me, I'll let you live a better life. Equivalent exchange. There was nothing in this world that could be enjoyed without sewing. I know what your life was like in the past. It's not an exaggeration to say that it was hell on earth. Are you really willing to be treated as a commodity for the rest of your life and be bullied for a few copper coins? Akeo's heart skipped a beat. Countless disgusting faces flashed in front of her eyes, from the hooligans of 12 or 13 to the shameless old men of 50 or 60. She could not help but ask herself. This person said that she had value. Should she not seize it and continue to live a life that everyone despised? She no longer wanted to live the life of receiving and sending people off. If she continued, sooner or later she would die under a man's body. She was only 14 years old this year, but she had already seen the outcome of aging. Her mother valued those fresh and young prostitutes more. There was a fixed number of customers every day. She was the only one who had to take off her clothes to serve when someone paid. But people in this line of work eat to show their age. You're already 14 years old. After working for so many years, even the most delicate flowers will be destroyed. Akeo could not help but think of the 11-year-old girl that her mother had newly bought. Her voice echoed in her ears and she could not help but shiver. Clenching her teeth, Akeo could not help but grab Jiang Pingji's sleeves with both hands. She begged and sobbed, I'm not resigned to this. Don't send me back. Then work for me. Jiang Pingji's voice did not fluctuate at all, as if she was just informing her of one thing. Okay. The audience in the streaming room expressed that their worldview was once again shattered by the streamer. Was she streaming how to abduct and sell people? Quachuang Kai, I'm stunned. Even human traffickers are not as domineering as the streamer. Lao Ciji Lianmeng, I seem to understand a little. The streamer wants to play a honey trap? Nugatang, honey trap? People come willingly for the honey trap. The streamer is coaxing and coercing, isn't she? Yinuagia Zhuga Qinmal. I can tell that you didn't watch the streaming carefully. The streamer's words just now obviously revealed a message. This little girl may have lived an inhumane life in the past. Didn't you see the bruises on her neck? The streamer wants to use her to play a honey trap and sell her body. The little girl can also take the opportunity to escape from hell and live a good life. It's an equivalent exchange. Even so, some audience in the streaming room still could not accept it. Jiang Pingji, the streamer, was challenging their worldview. However, it seemed that some audience in the streaming room had a more twisted worldview than Jiang Pingji. Lao Ciji Lianmeng, streamer, you can't be so straightforward. Who knows if a person who can be moved by benefits will be attracted by better benefits? You should move her with emotions and reason. Little girls are more emotional and easy to deceive. I believe you can do it. Yinuagia Zhuga Qinmal. Well, although the person above is a little cold-blooded, you do need to be more cautious. There's nothing wrong with that. The audience in the streaming room, according to Jiang Pingji's personality, how could she not consider these things? She could see clearly what kind of person Akeo was. Lu Shi's illegitimate daughter married Wu Ma Jun. There were at least 2 years of buffer time. Within these 2 years, it all depended on whether Akeo could pass the test and become a valuable chess piece. Moreover, Jiang Pingji did not need Akeo to do anything dangerous. She only needed to make herself fair and plump, dress up beautifully every day, avoid conspiracies and tricks, and live a lazy and comfortable life. With this face alone, she was destined to be praised to the skies. The name Akeo is not good. Change it. Jiang Pingji tilted her head and thought about it. She said meaningfully, Huijun, this is the name. Akeo did not know what the word Huijun was, but it sounded very proper and pleasant. It did not sound like a poor girl could use it at all. She bowed and bowed. Thank you, Master Langjun. You work for me. Naturally, I can't treat you unfairly. Jiang Pingji asked her, what do you want to do the most now? Ew. The current Huijun thought about it seriously and asked her timidly, what do you want to do the most, no matter what? I will definitely do it for you as long as it is within my capabilities. Huijun bit her lip. Her face was pale but she said firmly, I want to kill a few people. They are all bad people who deserve to die. If it were not for those ruffians she might not have become a prostitute. Even though she knew that it was unrealistic because her mother had taken a fancy to her face long ago and felt that she was a rare commodity, but she had lost her chastity. In her mother's eyes she was worthless. Chapter 307. Jiang Pingji placed her fingers together in a comfortable and happy posture. Remember to hide Huijuan's identity so that no one finds out. Lu Shi's confidant was stunned when he heard the name Huijun. He couldn't remember who she was for a moment. Jiang Pingji saw his confusion and explained, Huijun is the girl just now. Find someone to change her identity. The confidant accepted the order and said firmly, don't worry, Langjun. I will clean up her identity. Be careful. Don't give yourself away. After saying this, Jiang Pingji reminded him worriedly. Fabricating a household registration out of thin air is the easiest way to expose flaws. It's better to find someone who hasn't been cancelled and let Huijun replace it. Jiang Pingji tapped her fingers on the table. The household registration system in this era was very backward. Unlike her era, there was almost no possibility of fraud. In ancient times, because of backward technology and inconvenient transportation, many people didn't have household registration. Many people on the household registration died or disappeared, and they didn't cancel it for more than a decade. This kind of identity was very difficult to verify, and it was easy to take advantage of loopholes. Instead of taking the risk of creating a new identity for Huijun, it was better to let her replace the identity of someone who had similar experiences as her. Lu Shi's confidant nodded and accepted the order. Jiang Pingji said, I have nothing else to do here. You can leave. Since he was a confidant that Lu Shi valued, his ability to handle matters naturally could not be underestimated. Soon the matter was settled. Akao's mother, your Akao is back. Quickly go back and see. The woman who was called Akao's mother wore heavy makeup. Her clothes were frivolous, revealing a large area of her fair chest. She waved a yellowish fan in her hand. Her face was smeared with low-quality rouge, and her lips were painted with thick lipstick. Her slender waist and plump buttocks swayed gently. The curve made many ruffians who passed by jealous. They only felt that their throats were a little hot. What are you shouting about? He's back. That wicked girl left with the nobles for 2 or 3 days. She's forgotten about me. What a traitor. The woman's actual age was only in her early 30s. But she looked like a woman in her 40s. Despite the heavy makeup, some signs could still be seen in her eyes. She must have been a beauty when she was young. However, because one's appearance came from one's heart, her eyes and brows always carried a bit of maliciousness and harshness, which made people's hearts beat fast and not dare to get close to her. No, Akao's mother. Kao Shi, the one who came to report the news, was also a poor woman who lived in the slums. Although she looked down on Akao's mother for selling herself, selling her daughter and harming other women, she still felt a little pity for Akao, who was a girl who grew up under her watch. She's just a little girl. It's fine if she comes back, but she wants me, her mother, to kneel and welcome her? The woman had a bad premonition, but she was more annoyed with her neighbor. Your Akao is gone. What? Her money tree was dead? The woman was so shocked that her expression changed. She hurriedly followed her neighbor back home. There were already many people watching the show in front of the broken door. The woman rudely pushed the onlookers away and walked into the dark room. There was a girl in disheveled clothes in the room. She was her prostitute. She had just received a guest not long ago and her face was still numb. She held the few pieces of rags that could not be wrapped around her body and shivered. There was a roll of mat in the middle of the room and the mat was wrapped into a spring roll. The woman went forward to take a closer look and almost fainted. She lifted the mat with trembling hands and saw a female corpse with a festered face and a rough outline lying on the ground. Not to mention the face, the body was covered with marks of whipping and sex. The woman did not believe that it was a KO. She quickly tore the clothes on the female corpse and turned it over. There was a little red on the buttocks. This was a KO's birthmark. At this time she had to accept the fact that a KO was taken out by her benefactor and was humiliated and tortured to death. Most of the onlookers were residents near the slums. They knew how this woman usually treated a KO. Even an enemy would not humiliate others like this. Now that a KO was dead, it was exactly what this woman wanted. But the poor girl died too miserably. To their surprise, the woman who should have spat on the corpse did not humiliate the corpse. Instead she collapsed on the corpse and burst into tears. The blue veins on her forehead bulged and her tears and snot smeared the heavy makeup on her face, which made the onlookers feel very strange. Akao's mother has already. Alas, I'm sorry for your loss. Tidy up this child so that she can die with dignity. The woman who informed the woman could not bear it and came up to persuade her gently. Yes. Buy a better coffin for Akao. Those beasts sent her back and gave us 10 taels of silver. According to the price of 1 or 2 copper coins for a prostitute, she did not know how many times she had to sell the coffin for 10 taels of silver. In the eyes of the onlookers, the price of this compensation was worth it. The woman cried so hard that she almost could not breathe. She only survived after her neighbor pinched her philtrum. The body. Duckweed. The woman only felt that the scenery before her eyes was spinning as if the world had turned upside down. She mumbled in a low voice, "Slut. We made me so miserable." After that her head tilted and she actually breathed her last. With such a big thing happening in the slums, there were naturally many onlookers watching the show. No one knew that 4 dirty local ruffians had quietly disappeared. There were 4 more corpses in the mass grave outside the city. Each of them was stabbed with a dagger and died of blood loss. It's almost time. It's time to go Xianxia. A KO who should have died stood near the mass grave and looked at the 4 corpses that could not be identified with their original appearance. Her gaze was complicated. Her blood-stained hands were still trembling, and her 2 calves were trembling non-stop, but there was an unprecedented carefree feeling in her heart. "Oh, I'm coming." She put on the wide hood of the cloak covering most of her face, only revealing her slender chin. She clenched both sides of the cloak tightly with both hands to block the cold wind outside. She stepped on the sedan chair and entered the inconspicuous carriage. The carriage quietly left the mass grave. As Akao's passed, she was also buried here. Only Huijun was alive. "Are you sure? You heard Akao's mother mention the name Huiyun?" When Lu Shi heard the reply of his confidant, his expression was a little strange. The confidant was originally worried that there would be changes, so he pretended to be a poor person and mixed in with the onlookers, but he did not expect to have an unexpected gain. "Some sure. Huijun. Huiyun." Lu Shi silently said it twice. The pronunciation was the same but the words were different. The former was the new name that Lanting gave to Akao. It was impossible for Akao's mother to know. In that case, the name that she muttered before she died could only be that woman. Chapter 308. This year's first snowfall lasted for more than half a month. The weather became colder day by day. Many houses were crushed by the snow, and the number of casualties was unknown. A few aristocratic families in Shangjing opened granaries and set up porridge stalls everywhere. Even more wealthy families continued to lead a befuddled life. Jiang Pingji was temporarily staying in the Feng residence. When she heard that there was a porridge stall, she followed Feng Jin out to distribute porridge to the people. The snow continued to fall outside. Several rows of commoners had already lined up in front of the porridge stall. Almost all of them looked haggard and wore thin clothes. Some of the commoners wore rather thick clothes, but they were covered with patches of various sizes. "I wonder how many people have been crushed to death by this heavy snow, and how many people have been frozen to death." The manservant at the porridge stall looked at the endless queue and whispered to the manservant beside him. His words were filled with pity and sympathy. Even though 2 large pots had been set up, the porridge was still not enough for the common people. His companion was so busy that his feet didn't even touch the ground. "Stop talking nonsense. Work is more important. How can the life of a noble be the same as that of a lowly commoner?" Jiang Pingji helped to scoop up the porridge or carry firewood to start the fire. Feng Jin, a weak scholar, was so tired that his forehead was sweating. There was no noise or cue cutting, and the lively audience in the live broadcast room was silent for a long time. The atmosphere was extremely depressing, and some of the audience could not help but feel a lump in their throats. They did not have the courage to continue watching, and no one sent those immoral bullet screens to CG dance. Although we always complain about how cold it is in winter, so cold that we shiver, and complain that there is no natural heating in the south and it is very cold in winter. But we are living a happy life now, really, to CG dance. There is no natural heating in this area, but we can buy a heater from Taobao. It can be used to adjust the heat. If you are not afraid of wasting electricity, you can stay indoors in winter and still wear summer clothes. These were almost impossible in ancient times. The rich could wear more clothes and burn high-quality charcoal for warmth, but what about the common people? That's right, where are the commoners? Too many people could not afford to buy clothes to keep out the cold, could not afford to live in a house to block the wind, and could not afford to light a charcoal fire to heat the house. And this was in Xianxia, which was under the feet of the emperor. If this was the case here, what would happen to the surrounding areas of Xianxia? How many houses had collapsed, how many people had been crushed to death, and how many innocent lives had been frozen to death? Without any external conditions, he could only rely on his body to withstand the cold. If he could not withstand it, he would freeze to death. System, can I use popularity points to exchange for food? Warm clothes are fine too. Jiang Pingji secretly asked the system. No, the host's level is too low unless you choose to level up. The system's cold, mechanical voice fell into Jiang Pingji's ears, and she felt an unprecedented desire to kill. Jiang Pingji secretly calculated the total number of points in her back-end account and asked, I can exchange for food just by leveling up? What's the ratio? The system replied, 10,000 points can be exchanged for 50 kilograms of food. 10,000 points could be exchanged for 50 kilograms of grain? Jiang Pingji now had more than 3 million points. On the surface, it seemed that she could exchange them for a lot of food. However, Jiang Pingji was not someone who was easily fooled. The system didn't answer the first question. Even if it upgraded to level 3, it still didn't have the right to exchange for it. Let's not talk about this. To advance from a level 2 host to a level 3 host, he would need to spend 1 million popularity points. If all of them were exchanged, the remaining popularity points would not be able to be exchanged for much food according to the ratio given by the system. This was a trap. Forget it. I can't rely on you at all, Jiang Pingji replied coldly and turned her head to think of other ways. The system held its breath, but it did not dare to argue with Jiang Pingji. Unless Jiang Pingji chose to use her popularity points to level up, the system could not do anything to the host. The Feng family was one of the few aristocratic families in Xianxia that chose to open a porridge stall. They cooked porridge from day to night, but it was still in short supply. A bowl of porridge was not sticky, but it could at least fill one's stomach and warm up one's cold body. Jiang Pingji helped at the porridge stall for a few days, but she still did not hear any orders for disaster relief, let alone rice and winter clothing for disaster relief. Lu Shi returned from the morning assembly and he looked more and more tired. He said with a gloomy face, I've written to the emperor many times, but the emperor always used the second prince's wedding as an excuse to evade it several times. Today he finally relented, but he gave this task to an official with the surname Shi. That person is greedy by nature and he plucks feathers from every goose that passes by. I don't know how many people will embezzle the 20,000 taels of silver that were allocated, and how much will end up in the hands of the people. Although the world was not really chaotic, how much better was it than chaotic times? Jiang Pingji had been helping at the porridge stall for the past few days, or distributing winter clothing to the people, so she was the most familiar with the situation of the snow disaster. She snorted coldly. 20,000 taels of silver is not enough, let alone after being exploited and embezzled. What can it do? Lu Shi sighed. I've already secretly purchased a batch of food and sent it north to Xianxia, hoping to slightly alleviate the urgent situation. In the current world, whatever he did would be a drop in the bucket. It was better to solve the hidden problems from the root. After another 3 days, the snow finally stopped. Jiang Pingji looked at the invitation and her smile was very cold. The second prince is getting married and I am not related to him. Why would I go there? The vast city of Xianxia was covered in white snow, and the sky and earth were the same color. The princess of the royal family of the northern borderline wore a bright red wedding dress, and with the exception of the Dongqing emperor, she sat in a sedan carried by 16 people. The sedan was decorated with gold, silver and jade and hung with red satin, which shone under the sunlight. It was very luxurious. The wedding procession wore festive new clothes, and they entered Xianxia through the gate of the city. They walked around the city and the people on both sides of the street cheered and gave their blessings. Hundreds of tables were set up next to the prince's palace, and the court officials and noble ladies went in and out. It was very lively. In sharp contrast, in a remote corner of Xianxia, there were stiff corpses that were dug out from the ruins. One by one, the frozen corpses were piled up in cart after cart. Jiang Pingji wore a plain dress, and her long hair was tied up with a wooden hairpin. Her expression was as cold as ice. The way of the world. It was really time for a change. Jiang Pingji ordered the manservant who was cleaning up the corpses, "Bury them well. The weather is cold now and the corpses will not rot easily, but we can't neglect them because of this. If the corpses are piled up and not dealt with, it will easily become an epidemic when spring comes. Don't worry, Langjun. I will do it properly." At the same time, in another place in Xianxia, Lu Zheng was holding a plate and chewing the slightly cold white cake. He sighed and said, "It has been almost a month since the evaluation, and the imperial court still hasn't issued a letter of appointment. I think there is no hope this year. Master has decided to leave for Langyi in 2 days. I really don't want to come back to Xianxia again." Han Yu heard the sound of the wind blowing outside and he was very annoyed. Many people had frozen or starved to death, and the government still held such a grand wedding for the second prince, which was even bigger than the crown prince's wedding. Chapter 309. Han Yu wasn't in the mood to study because of the noise outside. Lu Zheng, on the other hand, was eating happily. Seeing that Han Yu was still frowning, Lu Zheng's eyes flickered and he asked casually, interrupting Han Yu's thoughts, "Where did Zixiao go? I didn't see him this morning and he wasn't reading in the morning either." Han Yu came back to his senses and asked, "You didn't see him either?" Lu Zheng ate a plate of white cakes and drank a big bowl of hot tea. The coldness in his body evaporated. "I didn't see him. This plate of white cakes was his breakfast. He didn't want to eat it because it was cold, so I cooked it and ate it." Lu Zheng patted his chest to calm himself down, then gulped down a big bowl of hot tea. The warm feeling made him feel a little sleepy. Han Yu's mouth twitched as if he could already imagine Wei Xi's embarrassment when he came back and found that his food was gone. Where was Wei Xi whom they were talking about at the moment? He was wearing a plain scholarly robe and a cloak that barely protected him from the cold. He went to the snow-stricken slums with 2 servants and a cart. Many slums that had been in disrepair for a long time had collapsed, making the already difficult roads extremely rugged. It was not easy for the people to get in and out of the slums. There was no porridge stall nearby, so many families had a hard time making a living. The thin elderly and children could only starve or freeze to death in the freezing weather. Wei Langjun is here. As soon as he arrived at the entrance of the alley, a 7 or 8-year-old girl ran into the alley joyfully. Not long after, more than 20 thin old women or children less than 10 years old came out with bowls in their hands. Wei Xi asked the servants to stop the cart and lifted the thick quilt covering the cart. There were 4 big buckets on the cart. Even though they were covered with lids, there was still sweet and fragrant hot air coming out. "Don't worry, everyone has a share." Although Wei Xi didn't show much of an expression, beautiful people always had some privileges. The people were quite touched that he came to deliver food every day. They had long let down their guard and were not afraid of this fairy-like Langjun. Instead, they liked him very much. Not long after, the 3 large buckets of steamed buns were all distributed, and the large bucket of thick porridge was also emptied. The leftovers were also scraped clean. At this moment, Wei Xi realized that the hem of his clothes was being tugged by someone. He looked down and saw that the little girl with an ashen face was staring at him with her clear eyes. Her eyes were filled with admiration. Through those eyes, he seemed to see another child and his heart softened. Squatting down, he looked her in the eye and asked, "Have you completed the task I gave you 2 days ago?" The girl nodded heavily and her yellowish face blushed. She answered happily, "Yes, everything is done." The houses collapsed, crushing countless people who were sleeping to death. The roads were blocked, cutting off the connection between the people in the slums and the outside world. Wuxia hired the young and strong men from the slum to provide them with 3 meals a day. He also gave them extra wages to clear the rocks and snow on the road. If not for that, the big cart behind them would not have been able to be pushed in. Under the pressure of the snow, more houses would have suffered. The girl in front of him lost her mother in the snow disaster, and her father's leg was broken by a fallen beam. He could not work at all. Losing their only labor force, one could imagine the life of this family of 2. Wuxia smiled and gave her a task. He asked her to remember the people who cleared the snow and rocks. He paid her daily wages and gave her warm clothes. The child was very concerned about this and did it very seriously. Very well done, he praised. The child smiled and opened her mouth, revealing her gums that were missing a few teeth. She seemed to realize that this was not good, so she shyly closed her mouth. Wuxia asked the servants to settle the wages for the day, and asked them to move a few bags of food from the cart, leaving some food for each family. I won't be coming in 2 days. There's still some food and money here. Keep it for everyone. Wuxia's family was considered to be in decline, but a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Before the Wei family moved, they left him a lot of money, enough for him to live a life without worries. It was just that he followed Master Yuanjing to the capital for the assessment. At first, he did not expect to encounter such a thing, so he did not bring much with him. Thank you, benefactor, for your great kindness. The crowd expressed their gratitude. Some of the elderly even wanted to kneel down, but they were all stopped by Wuxia. After leaving the slum, Wuxia sighed with worry. Personal strength was always weak. Even if he spent all his wealth, what could he do? The guest house that Wuxia stayed in was not close to the second prince's residence, but if he wanted to go back, he had to pass by there. The further away from the slum, the neater and more luxurious the surrounding houses were. The road under his feet also changed from a muddy dirt road to a neat stone road. It was hard to imagine that such a slum and the courtyard house in front of him would be in the same area. Seeing that there was a majestic guard of honor in front of him, he asked the servant to stop the cart at the side and make way for them. Langjun, the second prince's residence, is on the street ahead. Do you want to make a detour? The servant pushed the cart and asked anxiously. 100 tables of banquets occupied the entire street. Ordinary people were not even allowed to go near, and even the servants could not enter. Let's make a detour, lest we offend the nobles and cause unnecessary trouble. Wuxia lowered his eyes and tightened the 2 sides of his cloak. He frowned, leaving some wrinkles. The second prince's residence was originally the property of a high-ranking official in Xianxia. Later it was confiscated and the government gave this area to the second prince. The residence was expanded and renovated. Almost the entire street was within the scope of the second prince's residence, so it would take a lot of time to make a detour. From afar, Wuxia saw the corner door of the second prince's residence open, and buckets of swill were transported to the swill cart. After a long while, the buckets of swill were moved, and the vermilion corner door was quietly closed. From afar, Wuxia heard the servants who were transporting the swill whispering to each other. Say, how is this swill? It's obviously buckets of silver. I look at those dishes, they're neat and tidy. Some of them have only been moved a few times and some of them haven't even been touched. They're just poured into the buckets of swill like garbage. Outside, I don't know how many people are starving to death. Even if these can't be finished and thrown to those people to eat, many people can still be saved. The other cook said, Do you want to die? What nonsense are you spouting here? If the nobles hear this, it's a small matter. If you lose your job, I'm afraid you might even lose your life. What right do those lowly people outside have to eat what the nobles have eaten? Otherwise, why do they say that people have a golden spoon in their mouths and are born noble, while we are the peasants in the fields, born to be trampled upon? You still have the cheek to talk about me, aren't you also not careful with your words? The 2 cooks bickered for a while, then sighed and quietly drove the carriage away from the back door of the residence. When Wuxia heard this, he felt as if he was in an ice house and cold air rushed from the soles of his feet to his brain. A pair of mocking eyes flashed before his eyes, causing his heart to tighten. Your Majesty, you're right. Chapter 310. Lu Shi and Jiang Pingji stayed at the Feng residence for a long time, but all good things must come to an end. Time passed and it was time for the two families to part ways. Lanting, you have to be careful in Langyi Academy. Think before you act. Don't be impulsive. Feng Jin thought of Jiang Pingji's gender and wanted to sigh more than once. If his good friend was a man, things would be much easier. Unfortunately, she was a woman and was naturally restricted by her gender. Feng Jin felt it was a pity. I know. Do I look like the kind of person who causes trouble? Jiang Pingji said innocently. Feng Jin was silent for a while and said bluntly, you do. Su Ku, who was standing at the side, almost laughed out loud. He was liking this Feng Langjun more and more. He was straightforward and honest. Jiang Pingji glanced at Su Ku unhappily. You're helping others. Hui Jun was handed over to Lu Shi. He would send someone to teach her various skills and familiarize her with the rules and etiquette. Lu Shi had already received his appointment letter in Chongzhou. He would be leaving soon, so Jiang Pingji could not go with him. Therefore, before leaving, Lu Shi brought a generous gift to Master Yuanjing and asked him to take care of Jiang Pingji. She was going to study, not to enjoy life. Therefore, there were only two people going with Jiang Pingji to Laiyi. One was Takshu and the other was Su Ku. As for the servants who would take care of her, they could wait until they reached Langya and find someone to arrange them for them. I've always trusted you. You don't have to force yourself to study in Laiyi. Lu Shi looked at his daughter who was growing up. He was filled with emotions. Master Yuanjing is talented. You have to learn from him. If you don't understand, ask. Don't feel troubled or embarrassed. If there are any inconveniences in life, send someone to send a letter to me. Don't make yourself suffer. Lu Shi was not a pretentious person, but looking at his daughter he felt a little worried. He only had one child. Min's bloodline in this world was only this one. No matter how Lu Shi nagged, Jiang Pingji agreed obediently. The next day, after saying goodbye to Feng Ren, his wife, and Feng Jin, Jiang Pingji sat in the carriage. The coachman gently waved the whip and the wheels turned. Lu Shi also boarded the carriage. His entourage was much larger than Jiang Pingji's. There were more than 100 guards on both sides of the carriage. Nowadays, Chongzhou was not stable. They did not know what dangers they would encounter on the road. Bringing more people would increase their safety. As for Jiang Pingji, she could take on a group of people by herself, so she didn't need anyone's protection. That was why she rejected Lu Shi's proposal to assign guards to her. Jiang Pingji suppressed her unnecessary emotions and glanced at the Feng residence where she had been staying for a long time. She lowered the curtain of the carriage and her expression returned to its usual indifference. He leaned against the table and read for a while. When he got bored, he looked up at the bullet screen to kill time. The audience in the streaming room was also affected by the snow disaster some time ago. They were not in a good mood. Most of the bullet screens were greetings and there was very little content about showing off. Jiang Pingji flipped through the comments page after page, and her lips curled into a sneer. If she was in a bad mood, the system would not be any better. System, I suddenly thought of something. Don't you think there's something strange about the live stream? The roads in the wealthy district of Shangjing were very smooth. Coupled with the powerful shock absorption system of the Lu residence, she almost did not feel the vibration when she sat in the carriage. Ever since the system parted with Jiang Pingji on bad terms, it had not made a sound for a few days. Now that Jiang Pingji took the initiative to talk to it, it felt a little anxious. It felt that it was not a good thing. What's missing? The system asked her. Jiang Pingji looked like she did not care. She flipped through the bullet screen records day after day, starting from today. Because she had a super strong memory, her reading speed was abnormally fast. She looked through the records faster than flipping through a book. I remember you once told me that your full name is Multidimensional Palace Intrigue Streaming System. Not to mention the recent era in the streaming room, even in my interstellar era. The theory of planes has always been one of the scientific research goals pursued by scientists. Jiang Pingji said coldly, but the system's heart skipped a beat. It did not dare to make a sound. It wished it could erase its own existence. If a streaming platform suddenly pops up in the dimension I'm in and it's proven to be real. Jiang Pingji tilted her head, and the sneer at the corner of her lips made the system shudder. Do you think that a normal government machine or a big force with a certain amount of power would really be indifferent to this? But I've looked through the bullet screen records for so long, and I don't seem to find anything unusual. Jiang Pingji said it lightly, but it was tantamount to a clap of thunder in the ears of the system. After she intimidated the system, she sighed and said, "Can you explain why?" She had always been highly suspicious and wary of the system. Why? Because the system was not worthy of her trust. It had too many tricks up its sleeves. She would be a fool to believe it. If she had not tested it several times and confirmed that the audience in the streaming room was real, and that it was indeed connected to another plane, she would have suspected that the audience was fake. The so-called multidimensional streaming system was just an illusion that the system had created by itself. The plane was real, but a very important part of the bullet screen was missing. Jiang Pingji could not help but suspect that the system was manipulating things behind the scenes. Any bullet screen that involved the official forces of that plane had been secretly cleared by the system. In other words, those people were not qualified to enter the streaming room at all, let alone post bullet screen content. What was the system trying to do? After a long time, Jiang Pingji thought that the system was going to pretend to be deaf and mute. The other party gave an explanation. The streamer's streaming level is too low, so she does not have the authority in this area. In addition, the theme of the streaming room is palace intrigue. Your task is only to stream how to fight in the palace intrigue, and how to turn a noble lady from an aristocratic family into an empress who rules the world. Therefore, you need an interested audience, not a group of opportunists with ulterior motives. As a system, you must strictly control the situation and ensure that the streaming is watchable. The system replied coldly. It added, "As a system, my responsibility is to guide the streamer on the right path. Any content that has nothing to do with the main plot and elements that affect the viewing of the streaming room must be removed. Therefore, the official forces of that plane cannot enter the streaming room, let alone post content that is misleading to the streamer." Regarding this point, you can carefully look at the streaming agreement that you signed at the beginning. The system was businesslike and followed the rules and regulations. She could not say anything about it. Jiang Pingji secretly clicked her tongue. Anyway, there was only one system. Whether it was black or white, it could make up whatever it wanted. No matter what the other party said, she did not believe a single word it said. Jiang Pingji snorted and said, "That's fine. Anyway, I don't like to deal with unfamiliar forces." She had full control over her own life and no one could interfere with it. Hearing her say that, the system secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 311. Wei Xi looked at Jiang Pingji in a daze, his mind full of thoughts. The person in front of him was definitely at the top of the list of people he was most afraid of seeing. The scene he saw the day before was still echoing in his mind. He could not calm down no matter what he did. He would always wake up from his nightmares at midnight, sweating profusely. Yesterday he tossed and turned restlessly, unable to fall asleep. He did not have much appetite in the morning, so he only ate some white cake. Coupled with the dark circles under his eyes, people who did not know would think that the white cake was unpalatable. Lu Jing could usually eat 2 more bowls of rice when he looked at Wei Xi's face, but he had no appetite today. Before he could complain, Master Yuanjing, who had squinted his eyes and moved closer to the bamboo slip, suddenly spoke. "Zixiao, there is a distinguished guest at the door. Go out and receive her." Wei Xi did not understand, but looking at Master Yuanjing's slightly squinted eyes, his heart could not help but skip a beat. He had an ominous premonition. He muttered to himself. When he saw Jiang Pingji get out of the carriage, he felt a slight stomachache, as if the white cake he had just eaten was rolling in his stomach. Jiang Pingji stepped forward, seemingly not noticing Wei Xi's strange expression, and greeted him. "Zixiao, we will be classmates in the future. If I have done anything wrong in the past, I hope that Zixiao will forgive me on account of Xi's young age. I am not very good with words and people often misunderstand me. I hope Zixiao will not alienate me because of this." Wei Xi nodded, not daring to speak more. He did not believe the humble words of the person in front of him. She was used to being willful and reckless, doing whatever she wanted to do. If she said, "I am not very good with words, hit me if you don't like it," or something like that, he would believe her. Anyway, he could not beat her. Jiang Pingji did not care about his attitude. She raised her hand and untied the rope of the cloak. Wei Xi saw this and subconsciously took a step back. Both of them were silent at the same time. Jiang Pingji thought of something and smiled innocently. She handed the cloak to Takshu, who followed behind her. She did not miss Wei Si's slightly relieved expression. When she passed by him, she whispered something. That day I lent the cloak to Zixiao to ward off the cold. Although it is not worth much, it is one of Xi's favorites. Jiang Pingji lied through her teeth. Wei Si seemed to be facing a formidable enemy. She smiled softly and said, I wonder if I can go to Zixiao's room to get. Before she could finish her sentence, Wei Si seemed to explode. He took a step forward and walked quickly, looking as if he had been frightened. Jiang Pingji shrugged her shoulders as she faced Takshu and Su Ku, who looked like they had seen a ghost. She looked exactly like a local ruffian. Su Ku was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe that the person who had flirted with him was actually his Lang Jun. Since when did you have the hobby of being gay? As if she could read his thoughts, Jiang Pingji said, You're not as good-looking as him. Why are you so worried? Su Ku, should he be happy that he was safe or sad that his face was picked on? Takshu, on the other hand, was stunned at first, but she quickly regained her composure. She raised her hand to cover her lips, giggling as she teased. Our Lang Jun has grown up. When spring came, Lu Shi would be 13 years old. In this era, those who were engaged would have gotten married, and those who were not would have gotten engaged. Su Ku secretly rolled his eyes. Jiang Pingji said meaningfully, Yes, he's grown up. After greeting Master Yuanjing, Jiang Pingji was considered a student of Langyi Academy. She could study in the academy in the future. Who is this? Master Yuanjing smiled kindly. His gaze moved from Jiang Pingji to Su Ku. His name is Su Ku. He's my study companion. Su Ku was very nervous. He was like a prisoner waiting for his trial. He was nervous and uneasy. He was afraid that Master Yuanjing would be unhappy with him. He's a good seedling. He can be a great talent. Get up, all of you. Master Yuanjing was like a kind elder. He made people feel close to him. Lanting, have you had your breakfast? Do you want to have some with me? There were 2 plates of white cakes on Master Yuanjing's table. There was a teapot next to him that was boiling hot tea. There was a sweet smell in the air. Su Ku was stunned. He never thought that Master Yuanjing, who was famous in the 9 prefectures, would be so down-to-earth. Normally, when Master Yuanjing invited someone, even if they had eaten, they would have to say that they had not. However, Jiang Pingji did not play by the rules. She spoke bluntly. I've eaten. Master Yuanjing did not expose Jiang Pingji's lie. He turned to Su Ku and asked, Have you eaten too? Su Ku was still confused. He shook his head. He did not know why Master Yuanjing dragged him to eat white cakes. White cakes were a common breakfast in Langyi. However, Master Yuanjing had a unique taste. He ate white cakes with fragrant tea. There were many spices in the fragrant tea. Tasted weird, but the white cakes were dipped in honey. In short, this way of eating was like dipping lychees in soy sauce. Jiang Pingji politely declined. Su Ku was quite happy at first. After eating, his stomach felt uncomfortable. Jiang Pingji had expected it. She looked at Su Ku's bitter expression as if she was watching a show. I told you to eat whatever you want. Have you learned your lesson? She had a sharp sense of smell. After analyzing the spices in the pot of tea, she knew to stay away from it. However, Su Ku went to it. How did I know? Master's tea brewing skills are so. He did not know what words to use to describe it. Jiang Pingji smiled and said, Master Yuanjing's tea brewing skills are not a problem. However, an old man has a heavy taste. His stomach is not good, so the tea he makes is naturally better for digestion. You were born in Zisong County. The food there is more bland. Naturally, you can't stand it. Su Ku smacked his lips. There seemed to be an indescribable strange taste left in his mouth. Although he was flattered to have breakfast with his idol, it was better to eat less of such dark cuisine. Jiang Pingji said, Help me pack up. Master Yuanjing and the rest will leave for Langyi this afternoon. So soon? Su Ku was stunned. He thought he could rest for a day or 2 at the guest house. Not soon. They have been delayed in Shangjing for a long time. Jiang Pingji shook her head in disappointment and said, In the morning my father told me that the imperial court has no time to arrange a place for the scholars. They are to return to their hometown and wait for the decree. The reason was very ready-made. They were busy building relationships with the northern borderline and the marriage of the second prince. How could they care about other trivial matters? What they did not know was that most of the scholars were arrogant people. They were so ambitious that they were given the cold shoulder. They probably did not want to enter the imperial court to be an official. Not everyone liked the intrigue in the officialdom. Instead of fighting in the officialdom, it was better to be a famous scholar and still be famous. A slightly familiar-looking young man walked through the corridor and came to the hall. He bowed to Master Yuanjing. "Master, the carriage and dry food are ready." Chapter 312. Meng Heng, the eldest son of Meng Zhan, the county chief of Meng County in Song Prefecture, and the son of Liu Shi's second wife, Gu Zhen. He is now facing the danger of being assassinated. Please accept him. If the mission is completed, the host will be rewarded with a big mystery bag. If the mission has failed, the host will receive a level 1 electric shock as punishment. Jiang Pingji closed her eyes and leaned against the table. She seemed to be taking a nap, but she heard the system's synthesized voice. "Meng Heng." She frowned, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. "Big mystery package?" The system coughed softly and said, "Yes, this is the characteristic of real-time triggered missions. It's similar to a gold chest and the probability of getting something good is very high. I hope that the host can consider this mission. After all, it has been a while since you started a live broadcast mission, so the rewards are limited. As long as we accept Meng Heng and bring him along for a while, it will be considered a success." Jiang Pingji snorted coldly and said, "System, you seem to have forgotten. I'm not in charge of the team here, and it's not up to me to decide whether or not we can accept one more person. Although there were many people in the caravan, most of them were frail scholars. If the mastermind really wants to kill Meng Heng, it will definitely bring danger to the convoy. Even if one person is accidentally injured, it will be a great loss. You want me to bet on it?" The system was speechless. It tried to persuade Jiang Pingji, but it swallowed the words that were on the tip of its tongue. This host was not someone who could be easily fooled. It knew this very well. In that case, the host can choose to give up the mission. Even if you fail, the punishment is only a level 1 electric shock, which won't affect the host much. However, from the perspective of a system, it would be better for you to accept this mission. After all, Meng Heng is not only Meng Zhan's son, but also the only remaining descendant of your aunt Gu Zhen. He's your cousin. Jiang Pingji pondered for a long time and asked, "If I don't intervene, what are the chances of something happening to Meng Heng?" The system replied, "I've looked at the probability. It's 9 out of 10. Jiang Pingji glanced at the big mystery bag on the mission panel with an odd expression. "Don't bother me. I'll think about it," the system said in a businesslike manner. "All right, I won't disturb you." She did not seem to have any change on the surface, but she was secretly sneering in her heart. In the end, the system could not hold it in any longer. Jiang Pingji was in no hurry to upgrade the streaming room. She had said earlier that the leveling up of the live stream depended on the upgrade card. If she could not get an upgrade card, she would not level up. It had been more than half a year and she had been saving up her popularity points like a miser. No matter what the system said, she was unmoved. Why was she like this? Because she had already seen through the system's little tricks. So what if it was a system? To put it bluntly, it was just a bunch of data that thought it was clever. Did it think it could fool a living person like her? Dream on. After a few confrontations, the system did not gain the upper hand. Instead, Jiang Pingji found out more about the other party and knew what popularity points were. To the system, popularity points were the source of its upgrades and daily activities. Perhaps there were even more important uses. If the live stream room did not level up, the number of points gained daily would not increase. It would be fixed at that point. Unfortunately, the system's appetite was gradually increasing. It was like a 3 or 4 month-old baby growing into a 1 or 2-year-old child. In the past, he only needed a few mouthfuls of milk to fill his stomach. Now he needed a small bowl of muddled paste. Under such circumstances, the upper limit of the number of people in the live broadcast room had to be increased. Only then would the daily popularity points be able to satisfy the system's appetite. How to increase the maximum number of people? There were only 2 ways. One was to use the upgrade card. The other was to pay for the upgrade from the streamer's own pocket. The system claimed that for the sake of the streamer, a small investment would yield a big return. When the upper limit of the number of people increased, the streamer would receive more benefits. However, was Jiang Pingji such a stupid person? If the system was hungry, then let it be hungry. It had nothing to do with her. More importantly, Jiang Pingji suspected that the upgrade of the streaming room did not require that many popularity points. Who knew how much commission the system had received from it? Jiang Pingji could not be bothered to believe a single word the system said. Her solution was to drag it out. Drag it out until the system could not take it anymore and urgently needed more popularity points. Then it would pay for Jiang Pingji's upgrade. In fact, that was how the first upgrade card came about. She dared to bet that the real-time triggered task was meaningless. It was just an excuse for the system to give Jiang Pingji the upgrade card. If she opened the so-called big mystery package, there would definitely be an upgrade card. Ever since Jiang Pingji knew that the system could read her mind, she divided her consciousness into two. She fooled the system with her superficial psychological activities, and her deeper consciousness was her real intention. Well, she concluded that it did not matter whether she completed the task or not. I'll accept it. Just when the system was feeling uneasy, Jiang Pingji's light words made it cry tears of joy. It was as if it had been granted amnesty. It was rare for the host to be so easy to talk to. Takshu, I'm going to ride the horse for a while. I feel like my waist is going to ache after sitting in the carriage for so long. Jiang Pingji put the hand warmer in her arms in Takshu's arms. She lifted the curtain a little and went out sideways. Soon the curtain was closed. Langjun, remember to put on a cloak so that you won't catch a cold. Takshu stuck her head out and handed a cloak to Jiang Pingji. Jiang Pingji nimbly got on the horse and took the cloak with one hand. She shook her wrist and the huge cloak covered her body obediently as if it had eyes. Zuda, look. Young people are full of vitality and aren't afraid of the cold. It's enviable. Master Yuanjing heard the commotion and lifted the curtain slightly to take a look. He smiled with relief. He held a hand warmer in his hand. He wanted to curl up into a ball and he looked like he had put on a lot of weight. Zuda smiled as he fiddled with the silver coals in the charcoal basin. He moved it a little further away so that he wouldn't burn anything. You're old but strong now. You're not inferior to a young person. You were playing on the ice with your friends a while ago. I didn't even dare to go down. Zuda smiled and said shyly, if you say that you're old, I'll be the first to disagree. Master Yuanjing could not help but laugh. Your mouth is getting sweeter every day. I feel like I've lost weight because of what you've said. The previous snowfall had just stopped and now it was snowing again. The cold wind that blew against their faces was like knives and it hurt their cheeks. Jiang Pingji put on her hood and held the reins with both hands. She urged the horse to run from the back of the group to the front to clear the way. He really can't stay idle. Wei Xi was engrossed in his book when he heard the loud sound of horse hooves. He raised his hand to lift the curtain of the carriage, only to see a white figure speeding past the carriage. The cold wind that was stirred up blew on his face, making him feel a little more cheerful. Chapter 313. Wei Xi looked at Lu Zheng and laughed. You can even hug a charcoal basin to sleep, how can you still be cold? Lu Zheng was the son of a hunter and had lived in the mountains since he was young. How could he be so afraid of the cold? Of course it's cold. I was afraid of the cold when I was young. Lu Zheng muttered, wishing he could live in the charcoal basin. If he had not experienced the feeling of his hands and feet being frozen, how could he be so afraid of the cold? After hearing this, Wei Xi was quiet for a few breaths. His expression was a little nostalgic. Everyone knew that he was the legitimate son of the Wei family, but they did not know that he had a dark period where he was treated coldly by everyone. When the weather turned cold, the room would be as cold as an ice house. After a winter day, he did not even know where the charcoal portion went and could only hide in his bed in fear. Even after he grew up, his fear of the cold was still deep in his bones. When the weather turned cold, his hands and feet would be extremely cold. How did it improve after that? Xianxia, why are your hands and feet so cold? Come, I'll reluctantly let you hug me. Compared to him who was as cold as ice, someone was as hot as a moving furnace all year round. When Wei Xi thought of this, his cheeks suddenly became a little flushed, but it was not obvious because of the ample heating in the carriage. Don't you know how to wear an extra coat? Aren't you afraid of the cold? Wei Xi was no longer in the mood to read and murmured to someone. Lu Zheng looked up blankly and suddenly became happy. Zixiao is the best. You know how to be considerate of your brother. As he spoke, he opened Wei Xi's suitcase. A thick white fur cloak was neatly stacked on top with a painting on it. Wei Xi was speechless. Lu Jing said, "I think this rabbit fur cloak is quite warm, let me wear it for a while. This painting, as Zixiao's painting skills are really good, it's really nice." Lu Xiaoying, get off the carriage. Lu Jing was stunned. No matter how ignorant he was, he knew that he seemed to have touched something that should not be changed, so he hurriedly grabbed the carriage door. "No, I'm not getting off. Wei Zixiao, you heartless man, if you don't take me in, I'll freeze to death. If I freeze to death, I'll dream of you in the middle of the night and talk to you in detail." Lu Jing raised his voice like a pig being slaughtered. His attitude of, "If you chase me down, I'll fight you to the death," almost made Wei Xi collapse in anger. LV Xiaoyin, who once swore to live and die with her old master, refused to bow down even if the city was besieged for half a year and had no food. Was this the kind of person she was? Wei Xi deeply suspected that the LV Xiaoyin who submitted 10 letters of surrender, scolded Emperor Qin, and finally sacrificed herself for her master was not the person in front of him. The soundproofing of the carriage was not good, and Lu Zheng's voice was so loud that his classmates in several carriages could hear the commotion. Han Yu heard the commotion and laughed. "Zixiao, what have you done to deserve the wrath of the gods? Why are you being called a heartless man?" Wei Xi was so angry that his face turned red. However, he still had integrity and did not explain. However, Lu Zheng was a shameless fellow. He also did not care about his manners and stuck his head out of the car window. Zixiao should be of marriageable age. He accidentally saw something he shouldn't have seen. Now he's about to silence him. Can Wenbin let Lu Jing stay for a few days? Han Yu laughed. "You can't. If Zixiao wants to silence you, I won't be able to protect you." Jiang Pingji came back from a run. She could not help but frown when she heard their teasing. "Isn't it just 1 or 2 pictures of avoiding fire? Why are you so shy?" As soon as she said that, Lu Jing suddenly leaned against the window and laughed. Wei Xi's face turned pale. He never expected that Lu Jing, whom he had little interaction with, would have such a vile nature. Lu Jing was also a person who knew when to stop. He was very good at reading the situation. Seeing that Wei Xi was really angry, he could not help but raise his fist and cough lightly. "Zixiao, please forgive me. I was indeed reckless this time. I went too far with the joke. I hope you can be magnanimous and forgive me." Wei Xi said stiffly, "Don't do it again." When Lu Jing heard this, he was instantly full of vigor. He stared at the picture scroll. Before the advent of paper, scholars mostly used high-quality cloth as the base and splashed ink to paint. Now that there was improved bamboo paper, they slowly switched to paper, and this kind of paper picture scroll came into being. Lu Jing knew that Wei Xi was good at many things. There were even rumors in Langia that he was the reincarnation of the previous dynasty's Huangfu of Langia. His literary talent was not inferior to that of Master Yuanjing. In a few years he would even be more outstanding. But rumors were rumors after all. In Lu Zheng's eyes, Master Yuanjing was like an insurmountable mountain. What did Wei Xi do to have such a reputation? Now that he saw the content of the picture scroll, he was slightly convinced. The woman sleeping on the flower in the picture scroll was vivid and lifelike. It was as if she would open her eyes in the next second. If it was not for Wei Xi's bad complexion, Lu Jing could not help but feel her breath with his hand to see if she was still alive. The woman was dressed very boldly. Her sleeves were narrow, revealing 2 snow-white wrists. Her skirt could only cover her calves. 2 silver rings hung around her ankles. Her feet were pillowed on the flower petals of the sleeping beauty. It made the redder and whiter the whiter, making one's heart flutter. Why does this person look so familiar? Lu Jing murmured and stared at the person's face. Wei Xi had already taken the picture scroll from his hand and carefully rolled it back. "You're seeing things." Wei Xi pulled the suitcase over and stuffed the cloak from the top layer to the bottom layer. The picture scroll was even more tightly hidden. Lu Jing was speechless. He felt that the Wei Xi in front of him was very different from the Wei Langjun of the rumors. However, with such good drawing skills, if he really went to draw the fire avoidance painting, wouldn't the scene be so real that one could not bear to look at it? Although it was not the fire avoidance painting to draw such bold content. Teske Wei Xi was not a serious person. Unfortunately, Wei Xi also felt that this Lu Jing was very different from the Lu Xiaoyin in his memory. Both of them had a tacit understanding. I probably met a fake Lu Xiaoyin Wei Xiao. After walking for half a day, the servants started a fire to cook. The carriages surrounded an empty space to block the surrounding wind. Jiang Pingji asked the system secretly, "Where is Meng Heng? If you don't tell me where he is, how can I save him?" The system replied, "No hurry, he'll be here soon." Not long after, just as 3 bonfires were set up, a few silhouettes walked over in the distance, braving the wind and snow. Jiang Pingji was still riding on the horse. She said, "I'll go take a look first. I don't know if they're friends or foes." They had already left Shangjing and it was not peaceful outside. It was very easy to meet bandits or people who were being robbed by bandits. Out of caution, Jiang Pingji went to investigate first. "Who's in front?" Jiang Pingji stopped them on the horse. There were only 3 people in front of them. Judging from their clothes, they should be a servant and 2 guards. The servant bowed to Jiang Pingji and said, "I'm the servant of First Langjun, the chief of Meng County. The road is bumpy and the snow is slippery, so the wheels of the carriage are broken. I don't know what to do now. I saw a bonfire here, so I took the liberty to come and ask for help." Jiang Pingji frowned and asked, "First Langjun of the chief of Meng County? Is he Meng Heng?" The servant said, "Yes, he is my Langjun." Jiang Pingji's cold face warmed up a little. She said, "What a coincidence. My father is Lu Shi from Hejian. If we're talking about relatives, Meng Heng is my eldest cousin. Where is he now? I'll go take a look." When the servant heard Lu Shi's name, he thought it was bad. He did not expect Jiang Pingji to recognize him as her relative. He was relieved. Chapter 314. The system's voice rang in Jiang Pingji's ears the moment she saw Meng Heng. "System. Congratulations, streamer, for completing the real-time mission. Help Meng Heng. You will be rewarded with a big mystery package. Please receive your reward at the backstage." That was it. Jiang Pingji chuckled. The system really couldn't take it anymore. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in such a hurry. She looked at Meng Heng calmly. Unlike Meng Heng, who had a delicate appearance, Meng Heng looked rough at first glance. He was dressed in a scholarly robe which made him look neither fish nor fowl. However, when she looked closely, she felt that he was full of determination. Meng Heng was more of a warrior who was proficient in martial arts than a scholar who was well-versed in poetry. She glanced at the thick calluses on his hands. It was the mark of holding a sword and a spear all year round. Even if Meng Heng was not good at martial arts, his body was definitely not weak. "Are you cousin Heng?" Jiang Pingji informed Master Yuan Jing, then followed the servants and guards to meet Meng Heng. When she first saw Meng Heng, he was still sitting in the carriage wearing a gray cloak. The charcoal in the carriage had long been extinguished and there was no residual heat. The decorations inside were also simple. He looked like an ordinary scholar from a poor family. She couldn't tell that he was the legitimate son of the Mengs at all. "You are." Meng Heng frowned. He couldn't remember when he had seen Jiang Pingji. "Mother often talks to me about cousin Heng. She's always worried about your days in the Mengs." Jiang Pingji didn't explain her background, but Meng Heng understood when he heard that. "Your cousin she?" Meng Heng looked at her blankly. He didn't expect that the handsome young man in front of him was the rumored second legitimate son of Lu Shi. When he heard Jiang Pingji mention Guzhen, his expression became a little obscure. How has mother been all these years? When Guzhen left the Mengs, Meng Heng could barely remember, so he more or less knew what had happened. Because he knew what would happen to Guzhen if she didn't leave, Meng Heng didn't have any resentment towards his birth mother. Instead, he respected and pitied her. The Mengs' residence was not a good place. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone all the way to Shangjing to study and avoid those messy things. Jiang Pingji said, "I fell seriously ill early this spring. My mother almost didn't make it. However, fortune and misfortune go hand in hand. After I recovered from that serious illness, even some of the ailments I had when I was young were cured. Now I'm living very well." Meng Heng said, "Mother is doing well. Nothing could be better." Jiang Pingji asked him, "I heard from cousin Heng's servant that there's something wrong with the carriage's wheels?" Meng Heng's face flushed with embarrassment. "Yes." Jiang Pingji secretly glanced at the broken wheel and immediately understood where the problem was. It was unknown how many years this carriage had been in service. It had been in disrepair for many years, and the wheels had also been used for many years. It was only now that it could no longer bear the load and was broken. How could the eldest son of the Meng family sit in such an old carriage? It was obvious how hard his days in the Meng family were. Going out on a snowy day, they didn't have enough charcoal in the carriage. Even the clothes they wore were old clothes that had been washed countless times. If Cousin Heng isn't in a hurry, why don't you come with me? We can take care of each other. Jiang Pingji invited him like a naughty 12-year-old. My mother is so sick that she's unconscious. She often calls out Cousin Heng's pet name at the door. Now that we've met, I have to ask you properly. When I go back, I can learn from my mother so that she won't have to worry. Meng Heng's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. It was as if that scene appeared in his mind. He didn't have many memories of his childhood, but he still had an impression of Gu Zhen. She was such a quiet and beautiful lady, as if she had walked out of a painting. One couldn't help but sigh at the peace of life. Now that she was still thinking about him when she was seriously ill, how could he not be touched? His heart warmed up. He said, "If that's the case, I'll have to trouble you. My mother has remarried many years ago. It's a pity that I haven't visited her. Cousin Shi, can you tell me more about my mother?" Of course. Jiang Pingji brought 3 carriages with her. She could still spare one for Meng Heng after tidying them up a little. Knowing that Master Yuanjing, who was famous throughout the 9 prefectures, was in the carriages, Meng Heng was stunned. He was so stunned that he couldn't react. "Cousin Shi, have you studied under Master Yuanjing?" "No, Master Yuanjing is very strict when it comes to accepting disciples. I've only studied at Master's Academy for a few years and I've learned a lot." Meng Heng didn't look like a clever person based on his face, but he was very honest with his words and actions. When he heard that his cousin could study at Langyi Academy, he couldn't help but nag a little. It was nothing more than to urge him to study hard and make progress every day. If it was a delicate young man, he would definitely show an impatient look, but Jiang Pingji enjoyed it very much. Meng Heng was like a lotus flower that was bred in the swamp of the Meng's manor. He was very unique. Master Yuanjing's students were very temperamental. Not everyone got along with them. Some classmates had only spoken a few words to each other for a few years. Their friendship was very thin and they were quite averse to outsiders. Meng Heng noticed this, so he spent most of his time in the carriage. He occasionally came out to talk to Jiang Pingji, but he rarely talked to Master Yuanjing's students. After Jiang Pingji completed the triggered mission that was not difficult at all, she ignored the big mystery package in the backstage mailbox. The system couldn't stand it and urged her to open it, but Jiang Pingji said, "I'll open it on an auspicious day when my face is good." "System, I have something to say now." She didn't provoke the system, so she found a chance to ask Wei Ci the next day. "I heard from Master Yuanjing that Zixiao is proficient in the 8 diagrams of changes. Can he read people's faces?" Wei Ci lifted the curtain of the carriage and asked Jiang Pingji with his eyes. What kind of demon was she trying to be? "What do you think of my luck today?" she asked. Wei Ci's face turned green after he heard that. He looked at Jiang Pingji with some unfriendliness. "I'm asking sincerely. I'm not trying to tease you." He continued to look indifferent. "Her glabella is red and the evil aura won't invade. This is great luck." He had never seen her glabella turn black. Even if the evil aura from outside entered her body, it couldn't suppress the evil aura in her body. Jiang Pingji responded with an "oh," and tightened her grip on the horse's belly. White obediently ran 2 steps forward. Wei Ci, she had enough of pretending. Jiang Pingji finally opened the big mystery package backstage. The package suddenly broke into pieces and floated in the air. Then, like fine sand, they gathered together and formed a golden object. Jiang Pingji pinched it with 2 fingers and made a sound of surprise. "System, look at how red I am." The system was silent. After a while it said, "I'm serving tea to you, lucky queen." She used a little force and crushed the card. A choice popped up in front of her. "Little angel system warmly reminds you that the host is currently a level 2 streamer. After using the card, you will be promoted to level 3. The number of people online in the streaming room will increase to 50,000. Are you sure you want to use the level up card?" "Yes, no." Chapter 315. System Announcement. Congratulations to the host Jiang Pingji for leveling up to level 3. The upper limit of the streaming room has been expanded to 50,000 viewers. Clusters of fireworks exploded on the virtual screen, covering the originally sparse bullet screen. The level 2 streaming room had light decorative patterns. After leveling up to level 3, the color of the patterns deepened and became very gorgeous. The audience who had been waiting in line rushed in, increasing the upper limit to 50,000 viewers. The sudden increase in the number of viewers caused the network to lag for a moment. The bullet screen was like an erupting volcano. Zuizhang Beishijing. What happened just now? I feel like the whole screen is lagging like a PowerPoint. Bing Tang Leming. I'm lagging too. I thought the streamer would only be streaming for a short time today. Oh, what did the system announcement mean? Did the streamer finally level up again? Will there be 50,000 viewers watching the stream? Lao Ciji Lianming. Seeing the screen full of fireworks, I looked at the interface. The number of viewers has indeed increased to 50,000. Ingtao. I thought the network crashed. I was waiting in line just now and then I suddenly came in. I wanted to complain that it was too difficult to get a spot in the streamer's streaming room. She got it once and then she couldn't get it anymore. Linglong Mibeadagaju. I agree with the previous comment. I have to change several positions to get a spot every day, but I can't get it every time. Dora aiming. Are you kidding me? How can a normal person's hand speed compete with these guys who have been single for hundreds of years? Nugatang, #picknose. I seriously suspect that their hometown is in the signal tower. Jiang Pingji smiled. Although there were a lot of new viewers, the atmosphere of the live streaming room was not bad. She glanced at it and then looked at the popularity points in the background. She had a plan in mind. After a few tests, Jiang Pingji had a preliminary understanding of the system's weakness. As long as she did not deliberately seek trouble, the system could not escape from her hands. The host and the system were like two people at the opposite end of a seesaw. The popularity points in their hands were the chips in their hands. As long as Jiang Pingji maintained the balance of the seesaw or suppressed the system, the other party could not do anything to it. Instead, it would be forced into a dead end by her. For example, if Jiang Pingji refused to level up, the system could only struggle at death's door. It would get weaker day by day until its energy was exhausted. On the other hand, if Jiang Pingji had less chips than the system, or if she accidentally jumped into the trap designed by the system, what would happen then? She would be caught by the system, and if she wasn't careful, she wouldn't be able to turn the situation around. She would become its puppet and the system could do whatever it wanted to her. If that was the case, why didn't Jiang Pingji seize the opportunity to take down the system? Because only by casting a long line could one catch a big fish. How could a person who achieved great things be attracted by the small profits before him and ignore the real big picture? Jiang Pingji curled her lips into a smile, her eyes brimming with confidence. She wanted to see how much longer the system could endure. Host, I feel like I'm about to break through. After a while, the stiff electronic voice of the system rang in her ears. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "Are you going to level up again?" "Yes." The system replied matter-of-factly, "Just like last time, I will try my best to choose the time when the host is not broadcasting to upgrade and maintain myself, so that it will not affect the host's daily broadcasting work. This upgrade is estimated to take 12 hours. Jiang Pingji nodded in approval. Before the system could heave a sigh of relief, she said, "Actually, I have something to discuss with you. I want to start the second fusion of forces." System. The other end of the line was silent for a long time. Jiang Pingji almost suspected that the system was pretending to be deaf and mute, but it finally responded. "Do you want to fuse forces now?" The system asked. "Yes, it will cost 1 million points of popularity." Jiang Pingji raised her hand and clenched her fist, her expression turning cold. "This world is so chaotic. If I don't have strength, I'm not even comparable to a rootless duckweed. I'm still too weak now. Only by becoming stronger can I protect everything." The system deliberated for a while. The host's current basic force is 12 points, and the fusion force is 39 points. This combined data has far exceeded that of an ordinary person and is almost close to the critical value. The higher the level, the more points of popularity required to increase the value by 1 point. Previously, you could increase the fusion rate by 0.1% with 10,000 points. Now that you have 1 million points, you can't even reach 1%. Jiang Pingji knew that even without the system saying it. I'm mentally prepared for this. The system continued. As a qualified system, I have the obligation to remind you of one thing. Previously it was only 10,000 points of fusion. Increasing from 30 points of fusion force to 31 points is equivalent to taking a small step for a child. Now it's directly 1 million points. The leap is too big. So, Jiang Pingji asked the system. The safest thing to do is to fuse them in batches. That will minimize the risk. Jiang Pingji pretended to think seriously, but in the end she rejected the system's suggestion. No need. Since I've chosen to take the risk, I naturally have a certain level of confidence. Isn't it just a gamble with my life? I don't think I'll be easily defeated. Jiang Pingji had learned the term defeated from the audience in the streaming room. Don't worry about me. The system's suggestion was good, but Jiang Pingji knew that it would not be as easy to talk to as it was now. It was highly likely that it would turn from guest to host. Didn't the system do the same after its first upgrade? It used the mission of saving Meng Liang to test and threaten her. If she had not resisted it, the situation would have been different. Therefore, she needed to increase her bargaining chips before the system's second upgrade. System, who the hell would worry about you? It was snowing heavily now. The snow from before had melted and turned into ice. The road was very difficult to walk on. To ensure safety, they set up several bonfires in the open area and prepared to spend the night there. Jiang Pingji instructed Takshu and rode into the forest. Even Jiang Pingji didn't dare to say that she could easily endure the pain of the fusion of force. If they did it in the carriage, it might cause a commotion. It would be hard to explain if someone saw her grimacing and in pain. This is fine. Jiang Pingji's night vision was excellent. She rode White to the nearest stream. Host, are you sure you want to use 1 million points to continue the fusion? Yes, B. Think about it. Decisively choose A. With the previous experience, Jiang Pingji was not anxious. Instead, she sat quietly by the stream and waited for the fusion to begin. As expected, after a few breaths, a sharp pain without warning swept through her body. It was fierce and intense, completely different from the first fusion. She secretly gritted her teeth and grabbed the pebbles by the stream with both hands. She clenched her fingers so hard that she left finger marks on them. The moonlight was as cold as water. When it fell on her face, it reflected a ghastly white color. She looked like a lifeless ghost. The color of her lips turned from green to purple. Because of the pain, her eyeballs were wide open. The corners of her eyes hurt as if they were about to split open. Chapter 316. The pebble in Jiang Pingji's hand shattered. Her fingertips split open and blood stained the gravel. She curled up in pain. Her consciousness was attacked by waves of pain, but she still stubbornly held on to the last trace of clarity. Her lower lip was bitten and there were several teeth marks. She could not help but groan from the corner of her mouth. In just a few breaths, wriggling blood-colored snakes slowly flowed out of her eyes, nostrils, and ears. The air gradually filled with the smell of blood. White was an intelligent warhorse from the northern borderline. Jiang Pingji's current situation made it anxious. Its hoofs kept rubbing against the ground. Plop. The sound of a heavy object falling into the water was heard, causing a large splash. It turned out that Jiang Pingji's entire body had fallen into the stream. White snorted and anxiously circled a few times on the spot. Then it turned its head and ran out the way it came from. It was already late at night. Except for the servants and boy servants on night duty, most of the people were already asleep. The scholars who liked to read at night were still in the carriage reading slowly by candlelight. Lu Jing fell asleep after eating and drinking. He grabbed the bedding and rolled himself into a spring roll. Wei Ci wore a cloak and leaned against the carriage to read carefully. Perhaps it was because he had had a different experience, but now that he was going back and reading these familiar contents, he actually had a different understanding of them. Seriously. After reading a book, Wei Ci gradually felt sleepy. Just as he was about to sleep with his clothes on, he saw Lu Jing sprawled out on his back. His sleeping posture was extremely carefree and took up more than half of the carriage, making him feel as if he had nowhere to put his feet. He should not have taken in Lu Jing, who was friendly with him. Who knew that his sleeping posture was so bad? He despised it. Is there the sound of horse hooves? He was about to wake Lu Jing up when he vaguely heard something. He lifted the curtain of the carriage. There was no movement from the servants on night duty outside. He could not help but wonder if he had heard wrongly. He muttered in a low voice. Maybe I heard wrongly. After a while, the servant on night duty stood up. He widened his eyes and said, "Isn't that Lu Longjuan's horse?" White's whole body was snow white. There was not a single strand of hair. It was vigorous, and it was a warhorse from the northern borderline with excellent bloodlines. It was very eye-catching at night. Lu Langjun? Upon hearing this form of address, Wei Xi's heart skipped a beat. He put on the cloak that was draped over his shoulders and tightened it around him. Then he took the hand warmer and alighted from the carriage. What happened? There were 5 servants on night watch, and one of them had already stepped forward to take the reins from Big White's neck and lead the agitated Big White over. Your servant doesn't know either. Seems like something happened when the horse came from that direction. Wei Xi frowned and stepped forward. Big White rubbed its head against his chest and snorted a few times, looking very impatient. Could it have discovered something? Wei Xi raised his eyebrows, an ominous premonition rising in his heart. This horse was naturally arrogant. During the day many people looked at it enviously. No matter how much they tried to please it, it was too lazy to bite them. If Dabai had discovered something, he would have gone to find his master instead of wasting time with an outsider. You guys stay here, I'll follow the horse to take a look. If I don't come back in an hour, then inform master and the others. Although Wei Xi was a scholar, he was also proficient in the 6 arts of a gentleman. His horsemanship and archery skills were not as good as those of a military general, but they were not just for show. Sorry for offending you. Take me to your master. Wei Xi stroked Big White's mane, grabbed its reins and flipped onto the horse's back. Surprisingly, Big White did not throw him off. Looking at Big White and Wei Xi, the servants looked at each other and could only do as they were told. The stream was not very far from where the carriages were camping. It would only take a quarter of an hour to travel back and forth on Big White. Wei Xi thought that something had happened to Jiang Pingji. He was so scared that his lips turned white. He almost got thrown off by Big White. However, there were many trees in front of him so he could not see clearly. But he was not deaf. The sound of the water was clearly. Before Wei Xi came over, Jiang Pingji had already woken up from the stream. She was in good spirits, but her legs were still weak. It was difficult for her to even lift her fingers. Relying on her good health, she simply soaked in the cold stream water to adjust her breathing. She found that there were many bloodstains on her skin. She raised her hands and splashed the water on her arms and neck. She used her clothes to clean the bloodstains. Hearing the familiar sound of horse hooves, Jiang Pingji raised her eyebrows but did not turn around immediately. Who is it? She asked. Her voice was hoarse and languid. Separated by the trees, Wei Xi shifted his gaze to another place, but his ears were slightly red. Your horse ran to the campsite just now. I thought that something had happened to you, so I rushed over, Jiang Pingji said. I found the stream here clean during the day, so I sneaked over to take a bath in the middle of the night. I've embarrassed myself in front of you, Zixiao. Wei Xi's face was livid. He stood beside Big White, not knowing whether to leave or stand. Since you're fine, it's not convenient for me to stay here any longer. Others did not know Jiang Pingji's gender, but Wei Xi knew. He did not intend to let others know that he knew. Wait a minute. Jiang Pingji stopped Wei Xi and said embarrassedly, I sneaked out and left in a hurry. I forgot to bring a change of clothes. Can I trouble Zixiao to bring Big White back and ask Taxu to help prepare a set of clothes? Hang it on Big White's horse ornament. It will send it over. Wei Xi's expression was completely unsightly. So, Big White didn't run to the campsite to ask for help, but to bring a set of clothes for Jiang Pingji? He glanced at Dabai. Dabai also turned around and looked at him innocently with its big watery eyes. Wei Xi's face was cold. He turned over and mounted the horse. I understand. He always felt that all his worries seemed to have been fed to the dogs. Big White snorted and the horse galloped away. It was not as hurried as when it came. Hearing the sound of the horse's hooves getting further away, Jiang Pingji heaved a sigh of relief. She raised her head and leaned against the stream. The stream was flowing. It was not frozen, but it did not hinder its bone-chilling coldness. Fortunately, this kind of coldness was nothing to Jiang Pingji now. Looking at her personal attributes panel, she smiled weakly. She did not care about other things but basic strength. 31 points, combined strength plus 56 points, was enough to prove that she had made the right choice. She raised her hand to look at her arm. On the surface, there did not seem to be many changes, but she could feel the power contained within. After washing a little with the stream, Big White ran over with a bag of clothes on its back. Seeing that the lower edge of the clothes was close to the ankles, Jiang Pingji frowned. The clothes are a little small. She knew that this was due to the increase in her height. After the combined strength, the jeans would also slowly be optimized. Her height was a little longer, which was also the external appearance after the optimization. Fortunately, the change was not big. Moreover, this body was only 12 years old. It was not even 13 years old yet, so it was normal for it to grow quickly. Apart from that, there was another advantage to this change. Due to physiological reasons, females were on average much shorter than males. This was especially true for Lu Shi's body. Now that she had grown taller, her height would not be too conspicuous when she appeared in men's clothing. Jiang Pingji tucked her wet hair behind her head and turned over to mount the horse. Chapter 317. Langya was indeed a place of outstanding people. It was still chilly in other places, but here the wind was already warm and the flowers were blooming. It was early spring and the scenery was perfect. The spring wind blew on people's bodies, stirring up some lazy warmth. The girl who loved to be beautiful had already changed into light spring clothes. The fresh and tender colors made her look more delicate than flowers. Her black hair was tied up high, decorated with 1 or 2 blooming flowers. Even if she didn't put on any makeup and didn't wear any makeup, she still couldn't hide her vigorous youthfulness. Girls loved to be beautiful, and the young Langjuns were no exception. Their clothes fluttered in the wind, and their sleeves carried a light fragrance. Jingle, jingle. A few bells knocked against each other rhythmically, following the vigorous steps of the horses. The crisp sound of the bells accompanied the sound of the horses' hooves, like a cheerful song. Anyone who heard it could feel the owner's leisurely and contented mood at the moment. A commotion came from the city gate, and people could faintly be heard discussing and cheering among the crowd. Is that the big worm that ate people in Zhangjiang village? Hey, it looks scary. Yes, look at its size, it must be at least 6 stones. No wonder it could eat so many people and cause so much harm that even the government can't do anything about it. My wife is from Zhangjiang village. I heard that this big worm has eaten 4 children. The parents of the children went into the mountains to get rid of it, but they were eaten until only bones were left. I don't know how to describe that horrible scene. Just looking at it makes me shiver and my legs go weak. Many people gathered on both sides of the street to see what was going on. They were whispering to the tiger that was carried by 4 strong men. At this time, a slightly smaller tiger was carried in. Those who were knowledgeable immediately recognized that it was a female tiger. Wow, I thought it was a big worm that harmed Zhangjiang village. I didn't expect it to be a couple, a male and a female. Not only that, look at the stomach of that female worm. It's abnormally shriveled like a female horse that just gave birth. The crowd was in a heated discussion. The customers in the tea houses on both sides heard the commotion below and poked their heads out. They were shocked by the 2 dead insects. Even though they were already dead, the power of their bodies was still enough to make people's souls fly out of their bodies. From the outside, the 2 tigers looked very complete and there was dried black blood in their eyes. Even if they were not experienced hunters, everyone knew how the 2 tigers died. Someone must have shot him in the eye with an arrow, piercing through his brain and killing him on the spot. His technique was clean and neat, and he did his best to ensure the integrity of the 2 tiger skins. Many commoners were envious of him. A scholar said, "It's rare to see such a majestic insect. I don't know who the person who killed him is, but he is said to be incomparably brave." You don't know? His friend was surprised. He leaned against the window of the tea house on the 2nd floor and looked outside as if he was looking for someone. What's wrong? Is there something I don't know? His friend smiled elegantly and said, If these two big insects were really harming Zhangjiang village, the one who killed them must be that person. What do you mean? The scholar was puzzled. You might not know, but didn't the county governor organize a gathering a few days ago and invite all the scholars to discuss the world situation? The scholar was still suspicious and said, "That day I got a little sick and caught a cold, so I didn't go over. I wonder what happened at the gathering." His friend smiled and closed his fan in a carefree manner. He sighed and said, "That day at the gathering a scholar said that military men bring disaster to the country. He said that Nanxing was almost destroyed by the four factions of Nanman. Other than the fact that the four factions of Nanman were powerful, the other reason was that the king of Nanxing trusted the military too easily. This caused the court to be unstable and the internal problems were not solved. The four factions of Nanman took advantage of the situation and attacked the city. Although Nanxing was also Dongqing's enemy, they were brothers of the same father. They would not feel comfortable if they were attacked by outsiders. Whether it was Nanxing or Dongqing, they were not willing to admit that Nanxing's territory was cut off again and again because they were weak. Once upon a time, the Xia dynasty annexed the 9 states and brought peace to the 4 seas. No one in the 9 states dared to oppose them. How majestic was that? The 5 states were all split from the Xia dynasty. They all claimed to be legitimate and had 5 sons from the same father, who was willing to admit that they were defeated by the foreign races because they were weak. It must be because they were careless and had hidden dangers, so outsiders took advantage of them. The blame was pushed back and forth, and in the end it was the generals. Unlike Dongqing, which valued culture and restrained martial arts, Nanxing's attitude towards martial arts was still acceptable. According to Dongqing's harsh standards, Nanxing's treatment could even be considered as generous. However, the monarch of Nanxing courted disaster. After forming a marriage alliance with the 4 factions of Nanman, he directly and indirectly caused the deaths of many generals who were truly loyal to the monarch. He handed over the military power to his own relatives and eunuchs who were worthy of trust. However, these people secretly colluded with the 4 factions of Nanman for some benefits. Nanxing's army was fighting at the front lines. Whatever deployment they made, the confidant of the monarch of Nanxing would sell this information to the 4 factions of Nanman. Under such circumstances, they could still win unless the 4 factions of Nanman were all blind and fought by instinct. Anyway, no matter what, the blame was unanimously pushed to the generals. This indirectly caused Dongqing to suppress the generals even more. The scholar listened to his friend's retelling and felt that there was nothing wrong with this. However, he still could not understand. What did the conflict at the assembly have to do with the big worm? His friend continued. That scholar had just finished speaking when someone smashed a cup on his head. His forehead was bleeding. The scholar sucked in a breath of cold air. This was an assembly organized by the county chief, who had the guts to make a move in public. How dare he make a move? His friend explained to him, saying, not only did that person make a move, he even said something impudent, almost angering that scholar to the point that 1 Buddha was born and 2 Buddhas ascended to heaven. Guess what that person said? The scholar's interest was instantly piqued. He asked, what did he say? His friend thought about it and imitated the person's tone. You're just a chicken. Don't talk about smashing a cup on you. Even if someone slashed you twice, you'd still come back for me to see. You're eloquent with your words, but you're just an embroidered pillow that looks good but is useless. If you have the energy to talk here, why don't you go home and recuperate? Don't let your wife complain that you can't lay eggs again. When the scholar heard this, he suddenly felt a toothache. These words are too vicious. His friend nodded in agreement as if he had just survived a disaster. It was not vicious at all. The situation was almost out of control. That scholar had abandoned his manners and rolled up his sleeves, ready to fight with his life. Needless to say, that scholar did not gain any advantage. Chapter 318. The scholar thought about it carefully. It seemed that there was nothing wrong with what he said. But the problem was, did this matter have anything to do with the 2 big insects? His friend continued, because the troublemaker Lang Jun has some background, the county chief did not want to make a big deal out of it. He hoped that the 2 of them could settle their grievances privately. The troublemaker said, Yesterday I heard from the girls in Wangchun Tower that there were man-eating insects in Zhangjiang village that were harming the people. Do you think that your mouth is so scary? Why don't we make a bet? Let's see if your mouth can kill those insects or if the bow in my hand can make them die. You always trample on martial artists. How did the founder of Dongqing start his career? Forgetting his ancestors. The scholar smacked his lips. He suddenly felt that although the troublemaker Long Juan's mouth was a little poisonous, he was a real person. Not to mention anything else, just the fact that he had the guts to kill the insects as a bet showed how heroic he was. Then these two big insects, were they hunted by that Lang Jun? Probably 8 or 9 out of 10. His friend nodded. I have a good friend studying at Langyi Academy. He has heard about that person. He was born with great strength and was strong enough to lift a cauldron. It is not impossible for him to kill 2 big insects. On the other hand, I heard that the scholar has been loitering in the brothel. He is lazy and has a lot of wives and concubines in his backyard. He can't even ride a horse or draw a bow, let alone kill the insects. As soon as he finished speaking, a few strong men had already carried the 2 tigers onto the street with some difficulty. The people on both sides of the street were curious. It was as if a cat was scratching their hearts, but they did not dare to go forward for fear that the tigers would come back to life. Ding-ding. The crisp sound of the bell was even clearer. It came from afar. The scholar could not help but open his eyes wide and stared at the source of the sound. A teenager who was about 15 or 16 years old was leisurely sitting on the back of a horse. He did not even hold the reins. The horse he was riding on was snow white with strong limbs. What a handsome war horse. The scholar sighed. The teenager on the horse seemed to have heard his compliment. He looked up and caught his gaze, which made the scholar a little embarrassed. At this moment he finally saw the young man clearly. It was different from the wide-sleeved Confucian robes that scholars like to wear nowadays. The sleeves were very narrow, but it was also different from what the foreign tribes wore. From the appearance alone, it still retained the distinct characteristics of Dongqing. It should have been modified from the basis of the Confucian robes to make it more convenient for movement. The young man wore a simple and neat silver ring around his neck. 2 sachets and other accessories hung from his waist. He wore a pair of brown wide-toothed wooden clogs and a pair of snow-white socks. The weather was not very warm and people with weak bodies would need to put on 2 more spring clothes before going out. However, this young man did not seem to notice and his clothes were light and simple. Looking at the young man's face again, his dark and heroic eyebrows were slightly raised, making his entire face look lively. As for those eyes, it was unknown whether it was a psychological effect, but when the scholar met the other party's gaze he suddenly felt guilty and wanted to avoid it. It was as if he could see through everything and no one dared to look at him directly. The bridge of his nose was high and his thin lips were slightly curled. He seemed to be smiling but did not, giving people a sense of closeness. Even the most picky person could only say that he was a handsome young man when looking at this plain face without any makeup. The snow-white warhorse was also extraordinary. There was a bloody bow and arrow on the horse's back. Even though it was surrounded and discussed by so many people, it did not move at all. It was like it was taking a leisurely stroll, and its owner seemed to be at ease with the reins. The man and the horse were actually such a good match. As the scholar thought about it, he suddenly realized that the young man was holding something in his arms. Ah, that's the cub of the big worm. The people with sharp eyes widened their eyes. They realized that the thing in the young man's arms was wriggling slightly and a head popped out. It looked like a milk cat, with its eyes slightly closed and its mouth contentedly, as if it was very comfortable to be held by the young man. However, if one looked closely, they would realize that it was not a milk cat at all, but a tiger cub that had just been born a few days ago. The young man did not care about the discussions of the people around him. He let the strong men carry the 2 tigers all the way to the door of a certain house. The young man looked at the plaque hanging on the door of the house. There were 2 gatekeepers outside looking in curiously. She rolled up her horsewhip and pointed it at the plaque. She said arrogantly, "Walk around this house a few times. Every time you walk around you'll pay 6 more coins." The scholar and his friend, urged by their curiosity, also came over to watch the show. Seeing the young man's actions, they were suddenly stunned. The scholar felt like he was dreaming. He murmured, "This is too arrogant." Even if he was stupid and did not know who the owner of the house was, He could guess some things just by looking at the young man's actions. It turned out that the owner of the house was the family of the scholar that was choked by the young man that day, right? Asking the strong men to carry the 2 tigers around the house to show off. This was a slap in the face right at the door of the house. So arrogant, why don't you go to heaven? Haha, if the audience in the streaming room could hear the inner voice of the scholar, they would probably chuckle. Their streamer had always been arrogant. He stayed in the sky and never came down. Yes, the young man on the horseback was Jiang Pingji. Lao Ciji Lianmeng, #propping chin. The streamer always causes trouble. This unlucky child is probably so scared that he doesn't dare to jump out. Chun Lai, although it's not the first time I've seen the streamer being arrogant, every time I see it I feel especially good. Dashu Xiaobing, #picking nose. What can I do? His brain is filled with too much water. The streamer is just kind enough to beat the water out of his brain. You didn't see the situation at Tianya gathering. The more you talk, the more you go overboard. It was the Nanxing king's own fault, but he has to deceive himself and push the blame onto others. Just wait and see, the current Dongqing will soon follow in Nanxing's footsteps. The bullet screen in the streaming room was densely packed. The virtual screen was more than twice as big as before. The decorations on the frame of the streaming room were also more complicated and gorgeous. Jiang Pingji rode on the horseback. She held the horsewhip in her right hand and lightly tapped the palm of her left hand. After the few strong men walked 2 rounds around the huge house, Jiang Pingji sneered softly. This is courage? What a joke. Jiang Pingji pointed at the door and said to the surrounding people who were watching the show, anyone with a bit of courage should rush out with a group of servants. Even if they can't win, they have to vent their anger. If everyone in Dongqing is a coward, Nanxing will be a good example. Fight with me. Pick up your own bones first, then talk. Coward. Let's go home. Jiang Pingji cracked the whip in the air with a cold face. Then, under her control, the snake-like whip obediently retracted. That was a beautiful move. She laughed heartily and bowed to the people around her. The skin of these 2 big worms is not bad. It can be used to make a tiger skin cloak. As for the meat, if the people in the village care about it, they can come over and have a taste. Some people knew Jiang Pingji, but some didn't. Which family's Lang Jun is this? Jiang Pingji's sharp ears heard them. She turned her head to look in that direction and spoke to the people who spoke. Chapter 319. Those families with ordinary backgrounds would only be able to taste some meat during festivals or on important days. Most of them would be raising their own hens. They wouldn't even be willing to go to the market to buy pork, let alone eating the meat of the giant worm. The audience in the streaming room saw that Jiang Pingji got someone to skin the 2 tigers and divide their meat on the spot. To Ciji Jiwu, host, are you kidding me? If you did this to us, you would be called over for tea. To Do Nyo Gaifin, wild animals are now protected by the country. Host, what you did was not just inviting them over for tea. You got shot, okay? But in the host's world, people hunt based on their abilities. If they like to eat, they eat. There's nothing wrong with that. Lao Ciji Lianmeng, you're saying that the host doesn't love animals? She doesn't even love humans. If she gets mad, she'll twist off a human's head for you to see. Nongfu Shangquan Yudiangshuan, they're just a group of indignant keyboard warriors. Didn't you see that the host has been too lazy to care about them for so many years? The more I care about them, the more they jump around. Ignoring them makes me proud. To put it bluntly, if the host was not in a different dimension from them, but in the same world, they wouldn't even dare to fart if they had the chance to face her, let alone scold her with the keyboard. Cafeteria auntie, you're just a group of idiots. You're using your own way of thinking to judge people from another world. Are you crazy? Didn't you see the introduction clearly? These 2 tigers ate so many people and caused harm. The host is saving people by killing them. As for skinning and selling their meat, are the chicken, duck and fish you eat everyday vegetarian dishes? You're overflowing with love and there's nowhere to vent it. What do fu do? If you have the time to scold here, why don't you turn around and search for fur? A group of people who are more sages than saints. The audience had just sent the message over when a bunch of insults and crusades came from behind. In Hua Nation, where the audience was from, people would even criticize a certain place for eating dog meat, let alone a live broadcast of hunting a tiger, manually skinning it,
and even publicly dismembering the tiger couple's carcasses and giving them to the people as a dish for dinner. Cruel and inhumane. Ishuangjuzi, I can't stand it anymore. I've never seen such a cruel executioner. Do you even have the heart to hunt animals? Animal Protection Association. Skinning? That's so cruel. Didn't the country advocate that if there was no trade there would be no killing? How could this kind of dog food like live broadcast room be open for so long and not be blocked by 404? I have already reported you to the top right, no thanks. A bunch of big grapes. There will be retribution for killing animals. I hope that the host's entire family dies, that her sons become eunuchs, and that her daughters become prostitutes. Host is a pig. You're a beast worse than a pig or a dog. This kind of trash host should just die. Host is spicy chicken. Go to hell. Go to hell. Go to hell. These insults were still considered light, but the content of the more excessive greetings to the 18 generations of ancestors was extremely unbearable to look at. Jiang Pingji couldn't be bothered with him and didn't open her mouth to refute. Just as the other livestream viewers had said, the more they paid attention to these clowns, the more they jumped. Jiang Pingji had always dealt with it coldly. In other words, her brain simply could not process the information that was even more worthless than rubbish. However, her fans who supported her would not give up. They directly started a war of words in the streaming room and it became a chaotic mess. Regarding her good mentality, a viewer who had followed the streaming room for more than 3 years sighed with emotion. Pepsi Cola. I suddenly have a lot of respect for the host's psychological ability. Nowadays, online violence is getting more and more severe. Many bright and beautiful public figures have been forced to suffer from depression because of the pressure of public opinion. The host has been cursed by the keyboard warriors for more than 3 years, but her mentality is still so good. Jiang Pingji was using a lotus to wrap up the meat that had been divided and distributed to the people who came to join in the fun. She caught a glimpse of this from the corner of her eye and suddenly smiled. Host V, it's not that I have a good mentality. In fact, my temper is very bad. The reason why I didn't refute them is because they haven't completely evolved. Why should I care about the language of a group of non-human beings? Secondly, if the feces in the toilet stinks you, will you step on them or bite them? The most correct solution is to flush it directly. Why bother so much? It was also because they were in different dimensions. If they were face to face, she would beat up the whole family of those who dared to speak rudely to her. Naturally, Jiang Pingji's arrogant words and actions directly touched the sensitive points of those people. They wished they could stay in the streaming room 24 hours a day and use all kinds of unbearable words to greet her. Jiang Pingji calmly divided all the meat and even gave the bones to the people to take home to make soup. She didn't spare any attention to them at all. As for the 2 intact tiger skins, they would be taken care of when they got home. She placed the 2 tiger skins on the back of the horse and rode White back leisurely. She bought a small courtyard with 2 entrances in Langyi. It was very close to Langyi Academy, so it was convenient for her to go to school or visit friends and relatives. Langjun, you're back. As soon as she arrived at the door was already opened and a gatekeeper in brown clothes walked out. She threw White's reins to the gatekeeper. Yes, White ran a lot today. Feed it more high-quality horse grass. White seemed to understand her words. It happily snorted and wanted to stretch its head to rub against her. Don't worry, Langjun. Your servant will do it now. Oh yes, find a skilled craftsman to deal with these 2 tiger skins. I plan to give them to my sister as a dowry. The tiger skin was not very expensive, but the 2 tiger skins that Jiang Pingji peeled were very good. They were bright and shiny, which was really rare. Even if they were given to Lu Shi's daughter as a dowry, it would not be embarrassing. It would be a good story to say that a brother took care of his sister. The gatekeeper listened and valued it even more. He did not dare to neglect it. Jiang Pingji was humming a light song. She was in a good mood. Takshu, are the luggage ready? As soon as she entered the door, Takshu came out to greet her. There was a thin layer of sweat on her forehead. It's ready. The things to bring to the second Yangzi are also ready. Takshu was wearing a simple dress. She was even more beautiful now. She had the charm of a mature woman. Langjun, you're back from hunting. Do you want to have a hot bath? There's no hurry. I'll bathe later. Jiang Pingji took Takshu's handkerchief and wiped her face.
Jun has been getting more and more attention from the government these years. He has become the most favored son besides the crown prince. The court officials are all watching him. My sister is going to marry him and become his wife. The Lu family can't slack off. The dowry doesn't need to be outstanding, but it can't be a joke. Chapter 320. Langyi was a prosperous place with a good business atmosphere. There were many good things there. Coincidentally, Jiang Pingji had been studying in Langyi for 3 years. The second lady wrote a letter to Jiang Pingji to help with the preparations. It was also to show that the Lu residents valued the concubine's daughter and the marriage. Because Lu Shi was in Chongzhou, he had no time to send the concubine's daughter off. This task naturally fell on Jiang Pingji's shoulders. Of course, even if Lu Shi was free, he would not give the concubine's daughter so much face. Moreover, she was not even his daughter. Taksha sighed. Lang Jun treats the second Nyangzi so well. Jiang Pingji listened and smiled without saying a word. Would she treat a concubine's sister well that she had never met? A weasel paying a visit to a chicken. What good intentions could there be? It was definitely not a good thing for a concubine's sister to marry Jun. Looking at Taksha's graceful figure leaving, Jiang Pingji frowned slightly. The audience in the streaming room drooled. Lao Ciji Lianming, it's a pity. If the streamer was a man, such a delicate beauty could be kept in the room. Nongfu Shangquan Yudiangshuan, #picknose. The streamer is not such a crazy person. Do you think everyone thinks with their lower body? Panda Sai, I also think it's a pity. She's such a beauty and she grew up with the streamer. Instead of marrying out and being defiled by the men of this era, it's better for the streamer to protect her. I think no one is better than the streamer. Faced with the stream of emotions, Jiang Pingji could not help but laugh. What was that saying again? The green bamboo snake's mouth, the wasp's tail in battle. Some blessings could not be enjoyed. As she was thinking, Takshu, who had already left, entered the room again. She bowed and said, Wei Langjun came to the residence to send a visitation card. Zixiao? What is he doing here at this hour? Jiang Pingji's brows furrowed. She secretly thought about Wei Xi's purpose for coming to the residence. In the 3 years that she studied in Langyi Academy, she had almost no interaction with Wei Xi. He had his own circle of friends. Jiang Pingji would not take the initiative to get close to him. Moreover, he would go out for half a month to visit relatives and friends. They did not meet each other much. More than half a month ago, she vaguely heard the students of Langyi Academy mention that Wei Xi had gone out again. Calculating the time, she reckoned that he had just returned. Why would he come to her residence to send a visiting card? With that in mind, she did not let them wait for long and went straight to the reception pavilion to meet Wei Xi. Jiang Pingji sat down on the master's seat and said with a smile, "What a rare guest. Zixiao actually took the initiative to come to my humble abode." 3 years had passed and Wei Xi was now a young man in his early 20s. Compared to 3 years ago, he looked more handsome. Probably because of the long journey, he seemed to have lost a lot of weight. The green clothes on his body actually seemed a little empty. Upon hearing the teasing, Wei Xi covered his mouth with his hand and coughed lightly. The voice was slightly hoarse and nasal. It seemed that this person was not only tired from the long journey, but also not feeling well. Did you catch a cold or something? Why don't you get a doctor to take a look? Wei Xi shook his head and slowed down his breathing, suppressing the urge to cough. However, the green color under his eyes added a sickly look to his face. No matter how one looked at it, he did not look fine. He said, "I'm fine. It's just that I accidentally caught a cold the day before yesterday and am feeling a little unwell." Jiang Pingji nodded and waited for Wei Xi to state the purpose of his visit. Sure enough, Wei Xi had his own purpose for visiting. "Lanting, I heard that you're going to send off your sister's marriage to Shangjing?" After all, they were classmates in the academy. Wei Xi did not call Jiang Pingji so distant. Instead, he called her by her courtesy name like others did. "This matter, if it can be avoided, try your best to avoid it." Jiang Pingji was puzzled and asked, "Zixiao must have his reasons for saying this. I don't know why, but why can't I go?" Wei Xi said, 3 years ago the government sent troops to help Nanxing. On the surface, it seemed that they were fighting and repelling the 4 factions of Nanman together with the other countries. In reality, the four factions of Nanman had no intention of destroying Nanxing. They only took the opportunity to retreat and occupy the conquered counties. They took the opportunity to recuperate and plan for the future. At the same time, this was also an extremely vicious plan to sow discord. Jiang Pingji said, I know about this matter. The four factions of Nanman stopped their attacks not because they were really defeated, but because they gave Nanxing a chance to breathe. At the same time, they disintegrated the reinforcements of the other four countries and provoked a conflict of interest between the other four countries and Nanxing. Although the other four countries sent troops to help Nanxing defend the last of their territory, they did not run a relief society. There was a price to pay for sending troops to help. After Nanxing was defeated, not only did they have to face all kinds of conditions from the four factions of Nanman, but they also had to give benefits to the reinforcements of the other four countries. The other four countries sent troops to help in name, but they also had the intention to take advantage of them. However, in the beginning, Nanman attacked ferociously. They were united against the enemy. Later, Nanman stopped attacking and the internal reinforcement alliance was in chaos. This matter was known to the whole world, but all the countries pretended to be peaceful and righteous. They did indeed fool many fools. But what does this matter have to do with me sending off my sister's marriage? Wuxia choked and lowered his eyelids. His expression was slightly silent. Jiang Pingji was not in a hurry. She waited for him to speak. When the spring plowing is over, Nanman will definitely make a big move. Nanxing is probably going to perish. Next, Dongqing will face the predicament of being attacked from both the north and the south, Wuxia said. The external threat is so obvious, but there are also many internal problems. The situation in Xianxia is extremely serious. It is almost to the point of being in a state of panic. One by one, they are still living in a drunken stupor, unaware of the changes in the outside world. They are passionate about internal strife. The four princes have grown up and each has their own backing. The fight for the throne is interspersed with the increasingly serious struggle between different factions. If you go to Xianxia, I am worried that you will not be able to return. When he was anxious, he did not even address himself as CI anymore. He directly addressed himself as I. Jiang Pingji raised her eyebrows. I will not be able to return? Don't underestimate those relatives and eunuchs. When they go crazy, they are not afraid of anyone. Jiang Pingji was calm and played with the teacup in her hand. I will consider what you said carefully. However, regarding the matter of sending off my sister's marriage, even if it is a dangerous place, I have to go. Wealth comes from danger. I don't know that those relatives and eunuchs are colluding with each other to create trouble. But don't worry, these useless fellows will not be able to touch a single hair of mine. Wuxia pursed his lips. His expression became complicated. Jiang Pingji suddenly said, I am not that weak. I know. Then you can relax and wait for a good show. In the eyes of others, Xianxia may be a dangerous place, but for her, it was definitely the beginning of her journey to the 9 states and 4 seas. Chapter 321. Brother Ci, father is having tea in the front hall. Wei Ci came out of Jiang Pingji's house and went to visit his master's house after a short rest. Although Master Yuanjing was famous in Jiuzhou and was the most famous scholar in the world, he lived a simple life. His house was neither too big nor too small, and the scenery in the house was very casual. The scenery in the yard was arranged bit by him, and it had a natural wildness to it. He just raised his hand to knock on the door and the door opened by itself. A slightly immature and energetic face peeked out from the door. The person who opened the door was his master's youngest daughter, who was also his most beloved daughter, Zhu Qingning. Wei Ci smiled, folded his sleeves and said, Is this master's foresight again? Qingning directly destroyed Master Yuanjing's pretense and said playfully, No, it's obvious that Sanwu in the yard suddenly ran around happily and father couldn't do anything about it. He then knew that brother Ci was here. It's not as powerful as you said. Sanwu was a kitten that Master Yuanjing picked up by accident. She had a difficult birth, and Wei Ci happened to be a guest in the house, so she was asked by Qingning to help. In the end, she successfully gave birth to 4 pure black kittens. It was probably because of this that Sanwu was very close to Wei Ci. Because of this, Wei Xi was often teased by a few classmates who were on good terms with him. Of course, there were also malicious mockery. Those people maliciously mocked him, saying that if he did not achieve anything in the future he could become a midwife. Wei Xi only smiled at those malicious words and did not take it to heart. Thinking of his master drinking tea in the hall and being harassed by Sanwu in all kinds of ways, he could not help but smile. Qingning saw his expression and could not help but blush. She was a step behind and followed him with small steps. She gently bit her lower lip and asked shyly, "Brother C, did you just come back from visiting friends?" "Yes," Wei Xi said. "Master's birthday is at the beginning of March. I have to come back early no matter what." Qingning replied with an "oh" and said with her head down, then, "Brother C, do you remember what the 16th of February is?" 16th of February? Wei Xi was stunned. "I know that the 15th of February is the flower festival. What is the 16th? Qingning revealed a disappointed expression and tried her best to conceal the unhappiness on her face. Fortunately, she had already arrived at the front hall, so she bowed her head and hurriedly excused herself. Wei Xi did not understand. Were the thoughts of this child so difficult to understand nowadays? Master Yuanjing frowned when he saw his daughter's attitude, but he did not make it clear. "Master." Wei Xi greeted. "Don't stand on ceremony." Master Yuanjing held on to Sanwu, who was struggling and scratching him. He tidied up his messy sleeves and looked a little embarrassed. Wei Xi held back his laughter and said, "Master, if you can't carry Sanwu, then let your disciple do it and carry Sanwu on your behalf." Just as he finished speaking, Master Yuanjing let go of him. The three of them rushed into Wei Xi's embrace and found a comfortable spot to lie down. Master Yuanjing secretly twitched his mouth. Another one was seduced by a young man. Even an old man was despised by him. "I saw you chatting happily with Wunyang just now. What did you talk about?" Qingning was the fifth child in the family, so many elders called her Wunyang. Wei Xi did not understand and said bluntly, "Wunyang asked me if I remember what day is February 16th. Master Yuanjing sighed and said, "February 16th is Wunyang's birthday." Wei Xi was stunned on the spot. His hand that was rubbing Sanwu's neck stopped. He could not help but have an absurd thought. From Wei Xi's point of view, it was indeed frighteningly absurd. He still pretended not to understand and said with a smile, "So she wants to ask me for a birthday gift." Master Yuanjing's face was fierce as he exposed Wei Xi's disguise. After February 16th, Wunyang will be 13. She should be at the age to talk about marriage. At this point it would be too much for Wei Xi to continue pretending not to understand. He could only smile bitterly. "I watched Wunyang grow up and I'm 7 or 8 years older than her. I only see her as a younger sister. Why would I have these thoughts? I know that you live the life of an ascetic monk and don't care about these worldly matters, but Wunyang is still young." Master Yuanjing paused and lowered his voice to ask Wei Xi, "I'm happy to see this happen, but it depends on your wishes." After all, Wei Xi was a student that he liked. Master Yuanjing could be said to have watched Wei Xi grow up and knew his temperament. It would be best if he could recruit him as a son-in-law. He also loved Wunyang, who was an old woman. As an old father, he naturally hoped that she would live a good life. Wei Xi was shocked. Sanwu, who was in his arms, noticed the change in his emotions. She used her paw to pat Wei Xi and meowed a few times. "I don't mean that." Wei Xi shook his head and said, "Moreover, I don't want to harm her." In fact, Wei Xi almost got married when he was 15 years old. It was just that when the two families exchanged cards, the bride was so scared that she broke off the engagement. Not only did he break off the engagement, his reputation was almost completely ruined. Those who were still willing to be friends with him were all true friends. Wei Xi treasured them very much. No matter which family it was, if they saw Wei Xi's horoscope, who would dare to marry him? Master Yuanjing secretly rolled his eyes. Wei Xi's excuses could fool the ignorant people, but it was not enough to fool him. Those who believed in the horoscope would naturally be restrained, but those who did not believe in it would naturally be unaffected. Master Yuanjing sighed. "Fine, I won't be an annoying person who will break up a loving couple." Wei Xi's expression froze. He seemed to have thought of something and wanted to avoid it. Little girls are the most fickle. They like certain things very quickly. Once there is a substitute, they will change their feelings very quickly, Master Yuanjing said faintly. It's almost the flower festival. When the time comes, ask your mistress to find someone who is as good-looking as you for Wunyang. I reckon that this matter will be over. Wei Xi was slightly embarrassed. Was it his fault for being good-looking? He should look for his parents for this matter. However, Master Yuanjing had made his attitude clear, which made Wei Xi slightly relieved. He had lied just now. He did not treat Qingming as a sister. He simply treated her as a daughter or granddaughter. Considering the issue of seniority, he changed his words. Wei Xi and Master Yuanjing talked for a while before Mistress called him over. She said that she had something to tell him. Master Yuanjing watched Wei Xi leave with Sanwu in his arms. He was silent for a while. His gaze turned to the screen at the side of the hall. Did you hear that? Qingming pouted. Her eyes were filled with tears. They were bloodshot and there were tear stains on her face. You shouldn't have such thoughts. Cut them off early. I will find you a real good husband. Be good. There are many good men in the world. Although not all of them are as good as me, there are many who are more filial than Zixiao. Master Yuanjing loved his youngest daughter, but he was not without principles. Only Wei Xi was a little troublesome. I don't believe that Brother C's horoscope will harm his wife, children, parents, teachers and friends. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of your father either. But there is someone in his heart. You can't squeeze in. Why bother? When Qingming heard that, she suddenly started crying again. Chapter 322. Alright. Wunyang, don't cry. When it comes to marriage, it's all about fate. There's no need to force it. Master Yuanjing patted Qingming and allowed the old woman to wipe her tears on his clothes. Qingming was a stubborn girl. When she found out that Wei Xi did not like her because he had someone else in his heart, she felt indignant. Elder brother Ci is already 21 years old now. The youngest people of his age are already married, and the earlier children can already read and write. Who on earth has seduced his heart? Qingming pursed her lips, and her eyes were filled with tears, as if she was about to cry in the next second. The young girl was very innocent. She had never thought of forcing Wei Xi to like her. She just felt that the person she liked was good in every aspect. Others should like him like her. Although it would be uncomfortable, it would be best if the person she liked was happy. If there was someone else in Wei Xi's heart, why was he not married? Master Yuanjing was slightly troubled by this question. It depends on fate. When fate is right, it will happen naturally. Could it be that the person is younger than me? Qingming twisted her handkerchief and pouted. Older than you. Master Yuanjing said, don't cry. Wipe your tears. If outsiders see you like this, it will look bad. Older than her? Qingming suddenly felt even sadder. If he was older than her, did it mean that he was about to reach marriageable age? Was Wei Xi waiting for him to reach marriageable age? Who is that person? Qingming asked. Wuxia. She was not jealous. Instead, she was more competitive and curious. As the youngest daughter of Wei Xi's teacher, was her relationship with Wei Xi not considered close? She had such an advantage, but he still did not like her. Instead, he liked someone else. The young girl felt uncomfortable. I'm afraid that if you see him, you will feel even more uncomfortable. Master Yuanjing sighed. When the time is right, you will naturally know who that person is. I will find you someone of similar age, looks and talent. He will let our Wunyang live happily. Qingming nodded with tears in her eyes. She was a little emotional. It's almost time for the flower festival. When the time comes, you must tell your father if you see any handsome man. Although the atmosphere in Dongqing was getting stricter and stricter with the restrictions on women, Master Yuanjing's thoughts were not on the same level as those of the secular world. Even though it was a blind marriage, Master Yuanjing could not bear to see his daughter suffer. Choosing a son-in-law was like choosing a pair of shoes. The daughter would know if the shoes fit. If she liked them and the father was satisfied, then it would be a good marriage. Qingming was still a little sad, but she was a young girl after all. She was easily shy when it came to matters related to her marriage. Aha. Biting her lip, she responded in a low voice. Wei Xi had his dinner at Master Yuanjing's residence before he left. It was just that Sanwu was rather resentful of him for being away from home for so long, and only after tearing his sleeves did it loosen its claws reluctantly. Wei Xi's mistress carried Sanwu in her arms and stroked its fur. She sent Wei Xi to the door and covered her sleeves with a chuckle as she looked at his miserable appearance. The flower festival is coming soon. Go back and prepare some brighter clothes. If you were to wear this, which lady would take a fancy to you? Mistress looked at Wei Xi lovingly. Although she was old, she had a good attitude and still looked young. Wei Xi's cheeks turned red. He was so teased that he was speechless. When an elder teased a junior, should he not be shy and accept it? Should he explode on the spot? After leaving Master Yuanjing's residence, Wei Xi's mind was filled with the words flower festival, as if he was possessed. After a while he felt that something was not right. Could it be that I forgot something? Wei Xi was puzzled. He carefully thought about the flower festival. 12th of February. The birthday of 100 flowers. Birthday? Wait. The flower festival was not her birthday? Wei Xi seemed to recall something and his expression changed slightly. The flower festival was the day when 100 flowers were born. It was also a good day for young men and women of the right age to go out for an outing. The girls in the boudoir also let go of their usual modesty and began to worry about what color of clothes they should wear on that day and what popular makeup they should put on. Although the young men were not so fussy, they were faintly anxious and tried to show their best side on that day. Jiang Pingji was a little bored on this day that was filled with a strange atmosphere. She was pulled up from the bed by Takshu. She rinsed her mouth and washed her face in a daze. Then a bowl of clear broth noodles was placed in front of her. It's longevity noodles again. Jiang Pingji looked at the thin noodles in the bowl, which were of the same thickness and as thin as hair. He suddenly became energetic. Takshu sighed and said, I can understand that you don't want to hold a big birthday celebration. After all, many things are inconvenient when you are away from home. But you still have to eat this longevity noodles. Finish it in one breath and can't stop. It means longevity. That's what Madame specially told me. Jiang Pingji did not need to taste it to know that there was no seasoning in the bowl of noodles. It was boiled in water, which was bland and unpalatable. If you don't eat it, the noodles will burn, Takshu urged. Jiang Pingji closed her eyes and picked up the bowl. She picked up the noodles and stuffed the longevity noodles into her mouth. He even finished the soup. That's right. Langjun will definitely live a long, long life. Takshu smiled and put away the bowl and chopsticks. Only Jiang Pingji had a bitter face. It's too bland. The taste was simply indescribable. She could get used to Yuan Jing's unique dark afternoon tea, but she still could not accept such longevity noodles. After eating the noodles, Jiang Pingji took a shower and changed into the new clothes that Takshu prepared. The color of the new clothes was fresh and tender. From afar it made people's eyes light up. Takshu was quite gratified, but then she sighed. It's such a good day today. Why are you sighing? Takshu helped her tidy up her clothes and hung all kinds of accessories, such as sachets and pendants. You're already 15 years old. If Master didn't insist that you dress up as a man, you should have reached the marriageable age by now. You should look for a suitable husband and dress yourself up beautifully. With your appearance, which noble lady can compare with you? Why do you have to dress up as a man all the time? She seemed to realize that she had said something wrong. She quickly knelt down and begged for forgiveness. Jiang Pingji's expression did not change. She said, I quite like it this way. She bent down and helped Takshu up. We're like a family. You don't have to be so distant. Jiang Pingji was 1.7 meters tall. She was half a head taller than Takshu, and she was not inferior to men of the same age. Although her appearance was slightly feminine, she actually looked more like a man than most men in this era where men wore flowery hairpins and powdered their hair. Speaking of reaching the marriageable age, Sister Takshu is not young anymore. If you have someone you like, Lanting will definitely settle it for you. Xu Mei was in love with Su Ku. She was willing to wait for him and drag it on, but Takshu could not drag it on any longer at her age. Takshu was stunned. She immediately lowered her head and wanted to change the topic. Lanting really treats you as family. If you have any difficulties, just tell me, Jiang Pingji said with a smile. Jiang Pingji said with a smile. Takshu burst out laughing. Your servant's life is better than that of a rich merchant's wife. What difficulties do I have? She took the sandalwood fan and passed it to Jiang Pingji. Come back early. You still have to leave tomorrow. Don't be blinded by the foxes outside. Otherwise I won't let you go. That you're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.